Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of the NACL Open Qualifiers brought to you by the CCS. We're going to continue tracking Lotus's run through the Open Qualifiers today. My name is Lindor here, reunited with Orion. And Orion, it is oh so good to be back here with you on the cast. We're getting straight into the draft here, so there's no time for us to reminisce on the good old days. But here we are back together, and Game 1 draft on your screens.
Yeah, it's been probably like what 3 or 4 years between the two of us actually casting together, but excited to get back into it. Obviously, for those that were with us yesterday, we saw Lotus able to take only the 1-game victory due to the other team having to lose a game due to some time issues on their end, unfortunately. But we obviously Lotus. This is the third round of the NACL Open qualifiers. They've only played the one set as they got their first round bye. As we do see GCE, they actually have also won just the one original set. Actually, yeah, they won the one original set. They went 2-0 as well. So both these teams coming in feeling pretty confident about themselves.
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Of course, every round you win in the winners bracket brings you one step closer. The longer you can remain in the top side of the bracket, the easier run is. Because if you drop down into that losers bracket early, Orion, you've got a lot of matches you got to win to make your
Absolutely.
way through the tournament. So here we go for game number one. We've got Ezreal, Jarvan, and Akali banned away for the side of GCC. Lotus are going to put up the Ambessa, the Bard, and waiting on that last ban here. All right, we talked a little bit before getting on stream about both these teams typically playing, or at least from what we saw from the small sample size we had of them playing yesterday, both of them like playing for their bot lane. They feel like they have top laners who can kind of play weak side, be on a little bit of an island like we typically see, and they have a lot of pressure coming towards that bot side. So I'm curious to see whether they're going to want to draft like these ranged supports, these double ranged lanes, and go for that lane dominance like we're seeing here with the Karma, or if maybe they actually want to have like some engage tools down there to enable their jungler to have some more ganking possibilities. So we'll see what it is. Karma will be the first pick though for GCC.
Yeah, I would definitely say for those that were watching yesterday on Lotus, the weak side of the map was the boss side. That definitely were getting cut out a little bit here and there, but it is a different AD carry today. It is not Globby. It's back to the main roster. It is Shogo, and kind of curious to see what these bot lane pairings are actually going to end up being. It is going to be the Nami locked in for Lotus to kind of match that Enchanter bot lane. Typically, the most common pairing for Nami, I would say, is either the Lucian or a Corki, maybe even a little bit of Draven. Shogo does play a lot of Draven, so if they wanted to play some even more aggressive. I do like this Xin pick with an Enchanter. It empowers him to be able to really take a lot of these early game skirmishes to kind of to go through. With the Ezreal being banned away by GCE, I'm a little curious exactly what the pairing is going to be here down for the Karma.
Yeah.
Typically, she is normally used with long range poking champions, so champions like a Jhin, champions like Ashe, something like that to really enable them to kind of get in the thick of things here. As we do see a Pantheon picked as well. This was picked up by GCE in their second game when they played in the round two of this tournament. So they do have a lot of confidence in this pick as well. What I would imagine probably here is going to be most likely a bot lane pairing to kind of be followed up with the Karma.
Yeah, usually when you see that early enchanter support, you do want to get an ideal pairing for it so that the other team can't kind of ban away some of those better options and weaken up that lane. We'll see what their choice is going to be here. Varus could be a potential flex pick as well. That is going to be the lock in there. So that is some of that ranged poke that you're talking about that can, mesh really well with the Karma in the bot lane. Also could be flexed around. I feel like it's probably most likely to go into the bot lane though.
Yeah, obviously there's the possibility of it going top lane, but I think it's been hurt a little bit. Is plus there's also a couple of champions that can go into the top lane very well, into the Varus. So, but
Yeah.
like you said, it is definitely an option. Most likely with Skip. There's going to be the Lucian duo pick that we've seen many times in a lot of higher levels of play. It is just a fantastic combo. Not only does it work with Lucian's passive, but it just really enables him to just really dive in deep and really make a lot of those aggressive plays. So, and it's kind of what we saw, like I said, a little bit from that very first set, is they had a lot of emphasis around playing around like kind of the bot side of the map and really leaving the top side to kind of leave it to its own devices. Unfortunately, we only really saw one game from Lotus, so we still don't have a really great idea of what their identity truly is within this composition. But
Yeah.
purely looking at a solo queue emphasis, they have like their top laner and Gygar plays a lot of the side lane like solely like bruisers that like they just kind of fend for themselves, and Shogo really likes to play the aggressive AD junglers, and typically that requires a strong AP carry in the mid lane to really help them facilitate around the map. That's kind of what we saw last night with the Rise to come through from Lotus.
Yep.
So kind of curious to see if that's going to be a similar way that they play this game, or if they go more for this traditional front to back kind of composition, which is kind of what they got drafted so far.
Yeah, definitely have some front to back capabilities. And Zhao isn't necessarily a tank, but with his ultimate can definitely be in the front lines relatively safely. Some mage bans away here from Lotus looking to target that mid lane pool with the Talia and the Annie. And it looks like, yeah, okay, Rise on the other side as well. So a little bit of mid pool pinched, as well as the Cho'Gath thrown in the direction of Gygar, making sure he's not going to be on that one.
Yeah, Cho'Gath is definitely a big a pick for Gygar specifically because he plays it a lot in solo queue. He's got almost 100 games already just this season in particular. So kind of curious to see what exactly is going to end up for him. His pick is going to be coming through. There's that Aurora pick, or
Mhm.
at least a champion that we saw a very strong AP champion in the mid lane. Ari, obviously, the answer very great with the Pantheon to kind of just the point and click CC and the chain CC to follow is going to be very nice to see. Kind of curious to see what the blind pick for top lane is really going to be. Obviously, this Aurora can go theoretically top or mid, but Gygar is typically more of a bruiser type of player, at least specifically in solo queue. We did see him play the Silas in yesterday's game, but who knows? It could be a possibility that he ends up picking out like another AD top edge hitters here. Obviously, the Aatrox is very good into the sign. You're able to interrupt all those. Anytime he goes for a Q, it's going to be very hard for Sion to ever really land that because Aatrox can
Yeah.
immediately cancel it if it does go through.
Yeah, definitely a classic matchup. The Aatrox can, of course, fill that kind of void that they're looking for to have some frontline, some melee presence, and some
Same.
backline threat. Zahen is going to be the choice instead. Matches up similarly into the Scion with, the pullback and different things that he can do to interrupt there. Also has the dash to get out of some of that. I feel like this is a good matchup as well, Orion.
Yeah, I'd say so too. I think because the thing with Sion is Sion doesn't really ever have the ability to kind of like cause any havoc in lane. It's just a champion that's just meant to build up a lot of health, become very durable in these late game team fights, and really trying to make sure that he's not really having any real problems, right? So as long as he's able to absorb the pressure from the Zahan, from the Xin Zhao, then he'll be just fine. But Zahan obviously is one of those champions that is just a very late game oriented scaling monster as he gets his more passive stacks and gets the levels underneath him. That's when he really kind of takes over the game. So kind of curious to see what the plan is for GCE on their side of competition, because eventually it's going to get to a point where this Zahen may be able to get some fairly free like laning phase, and typically
Right.
his weakest part of the game is his early stage. So maybe the Pantheon may actually deviate from just continuously playing for his bot lane. He may look to potentially put Gygar behind up in that top side, or he could just leave Sion to his own to basically say, hey, you do your own thing, and we're going to really try to make sure we pressure Lotus's bot lane that did kind of underperform in yesterday's series.
Yeah, I mean, Shogo in today might change the script a little bit for that for them. Definitely back on their main roster is going to be feeling good. But yeah, I feel like both these top laners kind of have the potential in the solo 1v1 to just be scaling up and doing what they want to be doing for the early game, getting farm, getting levels, getting that health stacking on the Scion, and scaling up on the Zahan, like you said. Definitely double range in the bot lane, so it's going to be pretty aggressive down there. There's going to be, I think, probably lots of opportunities for the mid laners to potentially roam down and influence that matchup. Both of these junglers can gank effectively early on in the game, so I think there's pretty much an option for the junglers to go to any lane to visit. There's a good reason for them to as well. You talked about putting the top laners behind a little bit on their scaling game, getting these mid laners ahead, especially with the mid jungle duos that we have in this game, can be very, very strong for both of these compositions as well. So I think the game plan for the early game for these junglers is wide open. And I think if you're Lotus, you like that, right? Surenfire is their veteran player. He's been playing League of Legends for a heck of a long time. Typically is the guy who wants to dictate the pace in the early game, wants to have the tempo on his side and be able to influence those lanes. So for Lotus, I think they're going to be pretty happy looking at this game on draft.
Yeah, I think so too. I think for the most part, they should have the agency in the mid lane with the Aurora, kind of pushing him in and hopefully letting the Xin Zhao kind of dictate what happens on the pace of the map. I think obviously for the boss side of the map, I know for sure Varus and Karma will definitely be able to have the priority over the Lucian Nami, but the aggressiveness of the Lucian Nami can basically try to dictate the pace a little bit of the game and kind of say, hey, we're going to try to aggressively take a lot of these 2v2s and really try to fight back against the poke, which is kind of what you have to do in these type of lanes. You can't just let them sit back and poke you the entire time, or else they're gonna dwindle your health bar down. You're gonna have to look to take some aggressive trades. Which anytime you're looking for those aggressive trades, you're gonna obviously have that volatility of the bot lane that's gonna be able to draw a lot of attention down to you. So I would imagine most of the action this game is going to be built around the fact that top lane is Sion's the hand, so it's going to probably be mid bot focus, really pushing in those mid waves deep, and then crashing down on the bot lane looking for those type of plays, which is honestly what we saw a lot from both of these teams going from their sets yesterday. So curious to see which at this point it's going to go down to which kind of team executes their composition a little bit better.
Absolutely, yeah. And talking about that matchup in the bot lane for this Lucian and this Nami, they're outranged, they're outpoked, and Lucian isn't necessarily like a late game scaler, right? He's kind of a mid game power spiking champion, likes to be aggressive and make a difference in those team fights on like 2, 3, maybe 4 items. And
Yeah.
so getting through that laning phase on equal footing is very, very important. And if they can get out of the laning phase ahead, that is when they're going to really feel comfortable, really feel like they can flex their muscles and contest for those mid games objectives with that power that they've built up for themselves. So we'll see if Lotus can, make good on that composition. They've picked that early aggressive bot lane. They've picked early ganking jungler for Schernfire, and see if they can execute. Like you're saying, Orion, both teams definitely have lots of tools to work with here in this game number 1 draft. For those of you who weren't with us yesterday, maybe you're joining us for the first time today, just going to go over a couple of format things for the tournament. This is a best of 3 fearless draft tournament. It is double elimination, so both of these teams had a bye in round 1, won their matchups in round 2. So here in round number 3, they're still in that top half of the bracket in the winner's bracket. If either of them lose, obviously one of them will. They'll be knocked down to the loser's bracket and will only have 1 life remaining. The top 4 teams for this tournament do advance to the NACL qualifying tournament. There will be 4 teams competing who make it out of this tournament, and then 2 teams from the NACL split previously that'll make up the 6-team tournament there. And the top 2 from that a qualifying tournament, then make it in to the split for the NACL for the next split. So a lot on the line here for these amateur teams. And not only that, but for these players, Orion, they want to look to impress, right? This is a big time tournament for them. They want to perform at their best. And even if they don't win with the team that they're with here today, they want to show that individually they have prowess to compete at that next level and to really show their skills here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you have an opportunity to kind of continue playing forward and continue playing like making your way up the scene, right? It's always good to basically put your good front face forward and say, "Hey, I have an opportunity to compete with a lot of these guys." And obviously, we've got some guys here that a guy like Schernfire, who's played for a very, very long time, has even played for teams like Team Liquid, Cloud9 Academy. You've got obviously it's like, hey, this is a lot of experience, but to still have the drive.
He played in Worlds in 2017 and 2018. Yeah.
He's got Dire Wolves as well. For the fact that you've seen this much progression and say hey, I'm continuing to grind and still work my way up there. Honestly, it's pretty admirable to know for sure. But obviously, we're kind of looking at it in terms of figuring out okay, who else figured out what's going on. But ultimately, I do think that I'm excited to see these guys play. I think obviously things were a little shaky yesterday for Lotus. It was kind of hit or miss at moments, but they still showed very good mechanical prowess in a lot of those team fights. I'm very curious to see exactly how it's going to end up playing out.
Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, we'll wait for these teams to load onto the Rift here. Orion and I will take a step back, but we'll be back for game number 1 here between GCC and Lotus. We'll see you there shortly. Welcome back, everybody. After that short delay, we are on to the Rift here for game number 1 against Gamers Collective and Lotus. Orion, both the teams onto the Rift here for their first game of the day. And we are going to see how this one goes. Game number 1, very, very important in a best of 3 Fearless.
Yeah, it kind of sets the tone, obviously, for the rest of your set, but also it kind of gives you a little bit of breathing room, right? Because things may go awry in this game. Who never knows exactly what's going to end up happening for the rest of the set. But it does look like we do see both junglers starting on the same side of the map here. The only real major difference is the fact that there was a ward placed over the Raptor wall by the Ahri. So it does kind of be able to show, that's going to possibly show that Xin Zhao wrapping around that corner and when he does get to the Raptor camp. So they will have a little bit of extra knowledge. So it's pretty beneficial. But so far, just pretty simple trading back and forth. You're going to see possibly a level 2 down here fight early on. It's going to be a very big difference for this wave than for these bottom lanes. But honestly, without these junglers really being around for really starting up these plays, probably not going to be a ton of action coming through. You see a very heavy level 2 trade.
Yeah, level 2 heal burned on both sides. Shogo and Mixture trying to press forward and use this aggressive early game duo that they have. Shogo with the dash. Gonna burn the barrier there from Paragon as well. So small summoner spell advantage for the Lotus bot lane.
Yeah, typically it's honestly very common nowadays, especially with how low these cooldowns are for these summoner spells.
Ooh,
Anytime you
Shogo.
see, oh yeah, getting very damaged. He does still have the barrier if he really wanted to use it, but taking a little bit of extra damage there on the back end definitely would not want to see that one coming through. But like I was saying, with how low these summoner spells actually are time-wise, you can use them very aggressively just to kind of help keep your health bar above a certain threshold, especially for a champion like Varus who does deal more damage the less health you have with that empowered W to come through. Kind of curious to see exactly what's going to end up happening here as a cause of that, because that's going to be a pretty big wave they're actually going to miss from the bot line just due to that trading pattern.
Yeah, the wave getting under tower now. Shogo trying to get back to lane. Should be able to get like at least a few of it, but definitely is going to miss some. So they're going to be at, most importantly, a little bit of an experience deficit early on here. Rest of the lanes farming relatively evenly. Repi has had the push here in the mid lane. Junglers have now finished their first clear. It is going to be Schernfire first on the punch to this bot lane. Scuttle Crab, of course, the bot lane from Collective did back away there. And so he is going to be able to pick this one up. Vega on the other side realizes that, okay, you got the bot one, I'll go get the top one. And so junglers will just trade. Schernfire, though, with a small tempo advantage with his first base.
Yeah, he's going to be able to get on the map a little bit quicker. We did see an assistance ping go down on the top side, maybe possibly looking at, Gaigar's low HP. If they were to possibly chain CC him, they could pick up with the kill, but Sun Yan obviously is very low on mana. He may not actually be able to reliably get this wave in if he doesn't get some form of assistance, and we do see an on-the-way ping here from Xin Zhao. Pantheon is in the area. This could be a 2v2 scuffle.
Yeah, Gaigar looking to bait this for his jungler, but Vega in the wings as well. Soning buying time. Vega is going to maybe flash in here, but no, actually Soning has to flash away. Coach Fire trying to flash to finish it off, but won't be able to do so. The Scion just barely lives. Now Gaigar taking a chunk of health is going to go into the revive with the Zen passive. Vega stepping forward, or stepping back rather, as Coach Fire tries to finish him off, but 100 health remaining on both of the Gamers Collecting topside. No kills on either side, though.
Yeah, bot lane trade happening down here. I think if a tether were to land, they could look for it. Oh, Shogo.
Shogo wants this with the barrier, and he is going to be able to get it now. Flashes into the bush, but Paragon able to flash after and get him with the piercing arrow. Mixture now has to get out of dodge. Maybe actually wants to put a little pressure down here with the Nami, but 1 for 1. Both AD carries picking up a kill. Importantly, though, it is Shogo going down, whereas it's the support on the other side.
Yeah, well played there from the side of Paragon, actually, recognizing the fact that even though Lucian flashed into the bush to kind of draw out some vision, as long as he was able to get close enough to land the empowered Q there, it was going to result in that kill. So well played to him to even up the trade for a 1v1. And honestly, I'm really surprised that that top play resulted in nobody dying. To see a potential roam here by Sun Yan. Doesn't have 6, does not have flash, so unless a charm lands, nothing's really going to come from this play. Repi just paying some respect, dashing out of the way with his W there. But yeah, still relatively even game here very early on. So a couple trades happening here and there, some small goldies happening. Actually, a powered Q may come through.
Ooh, yeah, we did just get a little bit of an extended replay on that bot lane fight. As back to live now, Shogo and Mixture looking to press forward. Schernfire is here. Don't know if he'll quite be able to get in range, so it is just going to be some bot lane pressure here for the Lotus bot lane, able to secure that one, and they now have control of the wave.
Yeah, gonna be able to push that one out. Varus should be able to get back in time for the wave relatively
Oh my goodness,
easily.
Geiger! Wants the all-in, doesn't quite have the damage to dive, even with the level 6 power spike. He's
Able
going to
to
use the
get out
ultimate.
of dodge there. Yep, just be able to get out of dodge. That's kind of like the important part, I guess, for the Scion a little bit. Just kind of be able to survive. Because the longer he is able to get his health bar up and really stack up his W Soul Furnace, he is going to be able to get much tankier. And he won't really ever be able to kill this Hen unless he makes it very tremendous. Actually, Sternfire looking for a trade in the river.
Yeah, Yubs is caught out here. No flash on there. Does have flash back
Oh,
up now. Just barely able to get out of there with the shield. Helping him out with a little bit of movement speed. Vega waiting in the wings as well. Looks like Lotus maybe are going to turn their attention towards the Drake. No, actually. Surenfire is going to recall. Reppy clears out the ward. Vega still looking for a potential play in the bot side here. We'll see how much time he wants to spend trying to kind of wait this one out.
yeah, he was level 5. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think he was quite seen on that last play. Maybe he was. Maybe they just kind of have an idea because they are playing very safe for this lane to be 1v2. Paragon obviously kind of doing a bit of an acting job here. He's saying, "Hey, I'm by myself. I'm an AD carry. I'm very alone," and maybe trying to possibly bait him. But good instincts by Shogo and makes sure to say, "Hey, this guy's not actually. There's just no way this guy's actually alone." There does appear to be some pings into the bushes here as possible plays. Vega's looking, but unfortunately not quite able to get anything done. And so far, he has wasted. Obviously, this entire time, Sternfire has been actively on the map trying to clear a lot of these camps. So, bit of a tempo lead, kind of going over to Zinzao currently.
Yeah, props to Shogo and Mixture there, like you're saying, to kind of sniff that one out. We don't know if maybe they saw him on the ward earlier, but either way, like, very, very patient waiting that one out, thinking, okay, he hasn't showed anywhere else. We know his bot side camps aren't up, so he's likely able to spend a little bit of time looking for something here. So very respectful of that potential play. You like to see that from your bot lane, especially if you're Surenfire, because he's like, this is an absolute win for me. I'm going to clear my top side. I'm going to continue gaining tempo and level advantages. Does now have the level 6, as actually it is Vega getting his level 6 as well. Mixture in a little bit of
Oh,
trouble here. No summoner spells, and the piercing arrow is going to go through the back of the Nami. Shogo now forced to retreat under tower with his support in the death chamber. Fire is on the way here, but a ward in the Tribrush is going to spot him out. I don't know if he's going to be able to close the gap here. Yeah, it's just going to have to turn around. So it is just going to be the one kill. And that's the second pickup there for Paragon in the bot lane.
yeah. I mean, I think obviously just disrespecting the fact that the corrupting arrow or whatever was able to kind of come through from the ultimate there by the Varus, and really able to apply that extra damage from all the ticks that you get when you initially land the ability, and really the execution damage, sorry, the max health damage to come through onto Mixture, able to pick up that kill there. So really well played to them, but it is still going to result possibly in this dragon going over to Surenfire. He is able to kind of use the pressure that his bot lane's now back into lane to possibly look for this play. Bit of a skirmish happening. Looks like kind of towards the bottom side.
Oh
Yep,
no.
getting caught out
Mixture's
there.
just dead again. We don't even know what quite happened there. Maybe we'll get a replay, but Surenfire does pick up the dragon, at least for something in return. Vega, though, is looking to trade objectives on the top side of the map, currently on those grubs.
Yeah, I think I was kind of trying to pay attention a little bit to the picture there. He was able to pick up. Yeah, here we go. So just face checking into a bush here. Fantastic mantra Q into the root, and there's just not really much the Nami can do. The early game damage from these, especially for a champion like Karma, is
Yeah.
very very high, and just able to really put a pressure onto him. So as we do see, Reppy taking a chunk of change in there in the mid lane, but is able to get a reset off. Is almost able to have his TP back up as well. But I mean, really, it's been a fairly slow game. There's only really been the action in the bottom side of the map, and obviously we kind of talked about it yesterday. The weak point for Lotus in particular was that bottom side of the map. I understand it's a different AD carry today, but so far it is kind of playing very similarly. They do have a sizable CS lead. Essence Reaver is completed for the Lucian, so he is an item up. The game is still obviously relatively even, but the game's still somewhat playing out relatively the same as it was to yesterday. But obviously, Dragon Control going to the way of Lotus is very going to help this game out to kind of progress the game out very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the CS lead, like you're saying, and then the early Drake they're able to pick up kind of helps equalize some of those kills. But yeah, we were kind of expecting the jungle attention in this bot lane to be the difference maker. That has not been the case. It's literally just been 2v2 kills over and over. Both of these bot lanes willing to trade aggressively, trying to play out these ranged fights as they should be with lots of aggression. And it has been Yubs and Paragon getting the better of that so far in this one. It is going to be the lethality Varus here. I
Hmm.
think that's relatively expected these days, but
Yeah.
good to mention it. So Paragon is going to have a lot of extra damage on his abilities with that lethality.
Yeah, it's always hard to have uptime as Varus into champions like Xin Zhao, like Sahan. They're just kind of running you down permanently.
Yeah, yeah.
He usually the uptime's the best when he is able to just have a Frank Hagen. Oh,
Champion
actually,
ult.
Starfall.
Chain of Corruption. Vega's going to block a lot of the culling there as Mixture is just trying to
Ooh,
evacuate under tower. Barely going to survive. No! Piercing arrow from Paragon once again claims the Nami's life, and it's a 4-0 Varus here on the bot side for Gamers Collecting.
yeah, I was just about to say Grand Starfall had not been used by Vega yet. Actually, Stormfire may not be able to get a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, Avers looking a little bit caught out,
Oh,
but
Sion
here
ulti.
comes the Scion. That's going to be a man advantage, and that is going to be a dead Schernfire. Avers wants to go for the chase down here. Does have the Spirit Rush into the Charm. Reppy trying to back away with the ultimate from the Aurora. Barely able to get out over the wall, but still a couple of kills over to the side of Collecting, and it is unanswered here by Lotus.
Yeah, and there's kind of that difference we're talking about a little bit with the Scion pick, a champion that doesn't necessarily have to have as much resources as a champion maybe like the Sahen, so able to forego a little bit of that ability to say, hey, I'm going to ulti down the lane and be able to apply this pressure. But that entire time, it was obviously Sahen able to take a lot of damage on that tower, even completely taking the entire tower all by himself this early on into the game, able to apply a lot of pressure early on, and able to kind of translate that gold lead to a very high standing.
Yeah, that's pretty big. You look at the gold there, and it actually is a lead for Lotus, but Geiger getting a little bit caught out here as Vega enters the fray in the bot side. Schernfire was in the area, and Reppy had the push as well, so GCC are going to be able to wisely not look for the all-in and just back away. But yeah, I mean, after a large play, getting 2 kills in the bot side, you have a 4-0 Varus, but you look at the gold, and Lotus is 1,000 gold in the lead. A lot of that is, of course, due to the farm lead that we talked about in the bot lane, and then all of those turret plates and damage that Geiger was able to get. Mixture does have to burn the tidal wave here, trying to get away from a lot of the CC. If the Chain of Corruptions had come down, might have gone down once again, so just going to burn that to get himself out.
Yeah, I think we had a slight issue there on the Twitch. Unfortunately, we did have a slight bit of a delay on a crash, but thankfully we were able to get back to live. And slowly, for surely, it is just as much of an early season thing for us, production wise, as it is for the players as well, trying to figure things out. So slowly but surely, trying to figure out some kinks. Thankfully, that things are going to slowly get better. But yeah, like you were saying, able to use the tidal wave there to kind of prevent any future damage. But honestly, this game is very similar for Lotus of what happened yesterday. They were down in kill score. Oh, actually, Paragon.
Ooh, the culling. Not
able to
quite
survive.
able
TP
to
coming
finish
down.
him off. Yeah, TP from Avers. Mixture is able to sidestep a little bit of the damage, but Lotus bot lane, not long for this world. It's a 4 for 2. It's a Pantheon stun, and it's both of them dead here again. Varus picks up 1, and it's going to be a 7-1 in the kill score as top lane Geigar does have to use that ultimate to keep himself alive. Passive is stacking up, but isn't quite there. Oh, he gets the extra auto. The damage comes through despite the flash from Sonin, and Geigar able to secure the solo bolo.
Yeah, Bluetooth audio there from the back end for the second, even after he flashed, able to kind of pick up the kill there. So very nice to see. I do believe that for actually, oh, never mind, we're good. Kind of looking to see exactly. Like I said, some slight complications there on our end. Unfortunately, apologize for that. But we saw the original play happening down there where we saw they tried to go for the initial pick onto the Varus, but just barely able to sidestep the last little bit of it. And that's kind of the power of of champions like Pantheon, like the Ahri, where they are able to kind of be able to say, hey, we can cover a lot of ground with our abilities, and it's kind of hard for champions like Xin Zhao and like Aurora to really be able to keep up with them if they are actively making the play first. So we kind of saw them. They got into the river and they said, oh well, we can't actually really make anything of this anymore, so we're gonna go back to farming and kind of. And that's what I felt like Lotus did a really good job of yesterday. Like I was saying a second ago, like they were down in kill score basically the entire game, but the gold was either dead even or they actually ended up having good gold leads because they were actively trying to make things happen on the other side of the map, like we saw with Geigar, and able to really make sure they put a lot of pressure. Even though they're not actually getting any of the kills. So kind of nice to see they're still willing to make plays and salvage gold leads, even though they're falling behind.
Yep, you love to make good of a good old top lane counter pick has that CS lead, able to secure that kill. So Gygar is going to be a threat in these team fights when and if he is able to join them. But I think you made a good point there, Orion. Like the chase down potential for the Ahri, for the Pantheon, and even with the long range of the Varus and the Karma speeding them up, it makes it so that Lotus, if they go for an engage, it has to land and it has to stick. Because if it doesn't, or they overcommit, there is so much potential to punish on the other side here for GCC.
Oh,
That's going to
corruption.
be the ultimate down. It's going to be the Pantheon in here as well. The stun comes through. Redemption plus some Nami heals to keep him up, as now it's going to be Coach Fire into the fray. Yubs is going to have to flash away. Culling straight into the shield from the Pantheon. Trouble Bubble just barely misses its mark.
TP.
Turn Fire looking. Teleport in. Aver's in the top side here as well, but Repi is going to be first to the fight. Across the wall as both mid laners look to get in on the action, and Avers is going to be able to find his mark. Gets the charm, gets the kill here onto the Lucian as Shogo goes down, and now Repi trying to go forward, trying to find an answer of his own onto the Viega, but he's stunned up himself. Chas to now evacuate the flash, but still dies, and Avers is going crazy. Almost able to take out Mixture there as well, but here comes Geiger into the backline, charmed up, looking to get the passive stacks up, but he just gets absolutely destroyed. Paragon is dominating, and Lotus falls 3 for 1.
Yeah, a bit of a crazy fight there. Obviously, the original play was the Pantheon ultimate over the top, trying to really start things. Obviously, I was a replay here. Pantheon ulting in, almost able to pick up the kill there onto the Karma, but able to kind of path away. And really, I felt like this TP was going to be kind of the difference maker, but they're able to kind of kite away relatively well. But then, like you were saying, Avers having that Malignus flashing forward, landing onto a lot of the damage there, and able to say, hey, like we're able to, really dictate a lot of that damage there. So great job by Avers to say, hey, like I can actually take over this fight and able to pick up many kills. Gygar obviously able to kind of pick up a kill on the back end there to kind of salvage the play a little bit here for Lotus, but still not quite able to really get the kills they needed to kind of get a foothold in this game.
Yeah, still a very close fight. As we watched the replay there, it was GCC picking up the Rift Herald, so they did get an objective for their efforts as well here. Lotus, though, of course, have done some good dragon stacking. 2-0 so far, with the next one spawning less than 2 minutes from now. And they're going to look to continue using that as their point of power as they move into the mid game here in this one.
Yeah, I think obviously, obviously the kill scores does not look very pretty, but if you are Lotus, I still feel like you're fairly okay in this situation. Gold is still relatively even. They're going to have a hard time, I feel like, actually dealing with this Varus because they don't necessarily have the greatest of engage tools. It's mostly just Lucian kind of culling you down with maybe the Nami over the top, but this Varus, with the gold that he does have, the 2 items in his back pocket, he will be able to kind of just stand a screen away and continuously apply a lot of this poke if they aren't able to really land anything. So hopefully they will be able to kind of figure out some way to actually really win these fights. You can kind of see like right here on the screen, you can see this piercing arrow, unfortunately not quite able to land, but this is the pressure that he will be able to kind of continuously have over and over again. So we just see the Rift Herald is being used here in the mid lane. Pressure is obviously in the side lane here for Gygar if he really wanted to collapse, but there's multiple members here in the area for GCE. This should just be mid tower being taken here, and really, honestly, this is going to allow them to have so much easier access to these side lanes. This Gygar is looking for possible play onto Sunyan, but I think honestly it's a really good read by him saying, hey, Ahri's not in the bottom lane, and I'm obviously last time he's looking to make a play, as we see Ghostblade here being used, 3 members in the mid lane, trying to constantly kind of apply a lot of this pressure. You see Gygar TPing into the boss side. Dragon is spawning up in 10 seconds. Both teams posturing forward a little bit aggressively here to see if they're able to gain control. Chain of Corruption, missing from the Varus. All 5 members of both teams are gravitating over towards this Dragon. This is going to be a big fight.
Yeah, Sonnen on his way here as well has the ultimate for that Scion. Chains of Corruption is down, so that's one engage tool on the side of GCCE that they aren't going to have available for this fight. Repi is looking to flank on the backside of the Dragon Pit, and Lotus looking to burst this one down. It's down to 3k. Avers
comes Zion.
Going to get knocked up. Here comes Fire. They just blow up the Ahri. Zion comes in, but oh my goodness, health bar's blinking on the side of GCC as Lotus just go forward. They get the Dragon. They get 1. They get 2. Sonnen will be the 3rd to fall as the Scion passive will not be able to do anything on the backside of this fight. Lotus decide that this is their time, and oh boy, were they right.
Yeah, huge team fight there for Lotus. We saw the initial play there. Ahri dashing over the wall, gets immediately blasted there, and we see the huge AoE coming through from the Aurora and the Sehen in the backline. This Sehen is a bit of a problem here for this backside here. Obviously, for a champion like Varus, he really wants these fights to be played a whole lot slower. He wants to control the pace. He wants to poke them down and be able to really just try to cause as much blinking health bars as possible. But really, Lotus didn't really give him that opportunity. They said, hey, the second this dragon spawns, we're going to start hitting it. You guys are the ones that are going to have to come into us. And that's what we like. Zehen wants people into him. Xin Zhao wants people to charge into him. So that's what he is able to control space. And Lotus able to pick up the team fight victory there. Third dragon of the game. Soul Point obviously coming forward in the next 5 minutes or the next 4 minutes whenever it spawns in. So great job by Lotus recognizing that they are able to make that play. And really, honestly, a big part of that was on Avers, right? We talked about him having a lot of success in a lot of these team fights and able to have a lot of just dashing forward, able to have a lot of that problems, but he was instantly bursted by Schernfire and Shogo in that initial play, and really once that play happened from there, they just kind of steamrolled him after that fact.
Yeah, a couple of issues cropping up like you're talking about. Paragon not really able to have a big impact in the fight. Avers maybe just not quite finding the correct angle in that situation. A little bit of a tough scenario for them with Lotus pushing the envelope and starting up the dragon and saying, hey, you've got to come and fight us now or you've got to give up Dragon Soul Point. And ultimately end up fighting them and giving them Dragon Soul Point. As we're going to see the Grand Sky fall into the top side. Gygar did just flash over the wall into kind of the Gromp pit, but there is a couple other members of GCCE here. He might be in a world of hurt. Does use the ultimate. Now going to get stunned up, and yeah, there's just so much damage. They will get the shutdown. Potential cross-map play here on the other side, though, for Lotus. Sonin is under his tower. They're going to go to kill the tower first, and then look forward and try to kill this very tanky Sion. Redemption used cross-map to try and provide the top laner with some health, but that will not be enough. Cross map 1-for-1 as now Shogo's dashing forward, completely fearless, knows he's got the team here to support him, and they're going to blow up the enemy jungler, still looking to push this one forward. That's going to be the culling, but he's taking so many tower shots. He's under that tower too. He's going to fall. They do get Paragon. They get Yubs as well. All said and done, I believe that's a 4-for-2. A little bit of chaos breaking out here, Orion, but it's chaos in the favor of Lotus.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw the initial play onto Gygar, and I thought for a second after they killed him with as many members of Lotus that were traveling to the bottom side of the map, I felt like, okay, there was possibility that they may be able to kind of turn towards the Baron. But for the composition that GCE actually has here, they're not the greatest Baron-taking composition. So even if they were to kind of immediately go towards this and not come down here to help the Sion, I don't know if they would have been able to kill it relatively in time. But here's the play. We see Sunyan obviously being targeted here. Great chase down, able to pick up the kill here. But we see Varus, not Varus, Lucian very aggressively dashing forward into the Pantheon, able to kind of pick up here. The culling, unfortunately, not quite having the greatest of angles there. And then, unfortunately for him, taking that extra step into the tier 3 tower to result in
two towers.
Play in live actually is happening. Big fight happening here.
He's coming in. The Chain of Corruption did just go wide as Gygar's just going to press on forward. He's just completely fearless. They've got the in-between worlds here for the Aurora as well, and they're just going to burst through health bars. Avers now on the run. Vega trying to press forward, but oh my goodness, the damage from Lotus is just too much to bear. Sonin will be the next one to fall. It's a 4-for-0 for Lotus as they have just turned this game around, and they've got their eyes on the Baron.
Yeah, this Lotus team really does seem to be a very confident team in a lot of these team fights. They are aggressively dashing forward, taking space in these fights, recognizing that they know that they can really win them. As you see a replay happening here, this is the initial TPs coming through. Gygar able to say he's so healthy in a lot of these fights that they just don't quite have the DPS really to get through him. And able to pick up a lot of those kills there. And unfortunately, once they pick up those first initial members, there's just no way they're able to really have any chance in the rest of these fights. And we see Baron obviously taken in the picture-in-picture at the bottom. Lotus taking a stranglehold in this first game.
Yeah, but 6k gold lead now. Their Dragon Infernal Soul spawning in 10 seconds. Sonin and the rest of GCCE trying to get back on the map, trying to find some sort of purchase on this bot side so that they're not just giving up Dragon Soul for free. But with Baroned up minions here and the waves pushing in all 3 lanes for Lotus, they might just be able to say, okay, I mean, you guys can go hang around the dragon if you want. We're just going to push your lanes and we can collapse on you whenever we feel like it. They're going to look to do that right now as Fire looks. They've got Reppy in the bot side looking for the flank. They're going to be engaging onto the Pantheon, who uses that E to give himself a little bit of time, but only a little bit of time is what it will buy. Yubs now is the target, knocked up into the trouble bubble. Paragon's going to get dashed on by Fire, and both of the bot side for GCCE are down. Sonnen has arrived in the fight, but once again, it's too little too late here for the Scion. Lotus win another team fight. They are going to secure their soul. Okay, we're being told it's an Infernal Soul, but that doesn't look like an Infernal Dragon, Orion. This is going to be a Hex Soul for Lotus.
Yeah, definitely a Hex Soul. Obviously, the client being a little weird saying it's going to be an Infernal Dragon, but yes, it is going to be a Hex Soul coming through. And really, for a composition like Lotus has, being able to have this Hex Soul is going to cause a lot of havoc. We see, obviously, initial engage onto Vega just doesn't quite have the durability currently to really soak up this engage, as you see the bot lane members just getting chased down by Gygar and Fire in a lot of these team fights. And like I was saying a little bit ago, this Varus does not like people being on top of him. He likes to have space. He likes to continuously poke down members, and Lotus is just not really giving them that opportunity to really kind of stand his ground and really kind of be able to make plays afterwards. So, great job by Lotus, really recognizing that this is what our composition needs to do. We need to play fast. We need to play aggressive and basically just run them down and not really give them an opportunity to breathe.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it a little bit that last fight. GCCE were like trying to set up in River. They're like, okay, if we can find space, hold space, let our Varus kind of sit in pockets of vision, maybe get some poke damage down. But at this point in the game, Lotus just go, we're going to hit our go buttons and run at your Varus. What are you going to do about it? And the answer is, we're going to die about it. So this next fight, Paragon... Chogo goes forward. He's just completely fearless. He thinks he can take this with the Nami helping him out. He will do exactly that. Vega's going to ult into the backside here with that Grand Starfall, but Reppy will pick up that kill and go unstoppable. Lotus here feel like it's all over but the crying for game number 1. A massive gold lead for themselves as they're going to look to continue up on this play on the bot side. Reppy over the wall with the in-between worlds. Gygar uses that passive to get the revive off on the Zhan. They're even going to flash forward here. Not able to get any sort of kills, but just keeping up this pressure. They're going to knock down at least 1, probably 2 inhibitors here. And I don't know if they can quite look for the end, but they look like they're going to push for it. Sonnen in the front lines, trying to clear the wave as much as he can. Fire is just going to dive under the tower, take out this Karma. Karma is dead. Sonnen's the next to fall. Paragon now into the fray, but there's just not a whole lot left that they can do. GCCE... pressed to their absolute limit here in the last last few moments of game number 1. Shogu a little bit low. Fire's gonna go forward. There we go. They finally get the engage. Trouble Bubble will secure another, and the Nexus will fall. Lotus take game 1.
Yeah, and I think really once this game got to that mid-game kind of composition where they were able to kind of dictate how the fights were looking to go, I think Lotus was able to really take control of this game. I think Lotus obviously, did a good job somewhat weathering the storm of that early game, obviously down several kills early on into the game. 10-3 at one point was the kill score for Lotus, but now all of a sudden, take those 10 kills away, it's 23-2 from that point on. Lotus did a really good job. Once they got ahead in the game, didn't really give GC an opportunity to kind of get back into the game.
Yeah, and Lotus never really felt like they were worried, right? Like they were losing bot lane pretty heavily in the 2v2. The Varus for Paragon was 6-0 and looking very, very threatening. But Lotus were just like, this is fine. Like you mentioned, Ryan, they have so much confidence in themselves to be able to come back from situations if they are a little bit behind. And even in that game, it felt like they knew, like, okay, yeah, your AD carry is 6-0, but gold's relatively even. This game is still well within our rights of winning, and they showed up when it counted. They knew when they were stronger. They knew how to play their composition correctly and able to execute on a big game 1 victory there.
Yeah, and I think for GCE side, I think you can have the confidence to say, hey, we were up in kill score, we were ahead early on in this game. We just need to be able to kind of translate that a little bit better going into game 2. And I think they definitely do have that ability. They kind of showed, at least in the early stages of the game, that they were able to kind of dictate a lot of what was happening early on into the game and able to punish a lot of Lotus's mistakes. But I think, honestly, I think the way they, how they approached team fights in that game was definitely a little bit off. I would appreciate if they would have played these fights just a little bit slower, allowed Sion to kind of take space in the front line. A lot of those fights, he was looking for ultimates way in the flank and try to cause a lot of havoc. I kind of wish he was a little bit more in front of a lot of those fights, but as we do believe, we are looking to possibly go into game number 2 already.
Yeah, we're straight into draft. Draft on your screens right now. We fell a little bit behind there for game number 1, so the team's already ready, which is great for us. That just means we get to go straight from game 1 into the draft here for game number 2. You can see the champions that are taken off here for game number 1 with the Fearless draft being played, and it is going to be slightly different bands here on both sides. Teams are going to be on the same side as we just saw in game number 1, but it's Nico, Anivia, and Talia this time taken away from for GCCE, and it's the Seraphine, the Bard, and as well as the Ambessa, which we saw the ban in game number 1. First pick Oriana here for GCCE, Orion.
Yeah, it was a very high priority for them yesterday in their set. They played the Oriana Nocturne composition where they put a lot of pressure down on the bottom side. So I would imagine Lotus probably had this in mind and recognizing that, hey, if they're going to pick this Oriana, we probably have a champion like this Akali in the back of our mind saying, hey, this is what we're going to use to apply the pressure onto this type of champion. Obviously, Oriana does have the ability to really push in the Sakali early on into the game and really cause a lot of havoc. But once Sakali does hit hitting level 6, she will be able to kind of fight back really well and be able to kind of cause a lot of problems because Oriana doesn't like people to stick on top of her. She likes to use her ball to kind of create some space. And gonna go ahead and take away the Oriana Nocturne type of composition here for Lotus. Gonna say, hey, we'll pick it for our own.
Yeah, what is that? The Nocturne combo, or the Knockwave? The Knockwave combo.
Yeah.
Not going to be available this time. Nocturne, obviously a champion that Schernfire likes quite a bit himself, so a little bit of a takeaway and a little bit of a pickup for themselves. Nocturne has been one of those junglers that we've seen in the upper echelon of the meta recently. The answer on the other side is going to be the Vi. Not something I feel like we've seen a ton of, Orion. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, obviously it has the guaranteed engage tool, which is kind of what we saw lacking from last game for both these teams. And really it's
Sure.
going to be about just wombo combo here for these teams, layering that CC on top with the ball, having the equalizer over top with the rumble. So they're looking to play very big into team fight compositions, which obviously, like, if you saw how last game went, last game they were fairly lane dominant but kind of struggled in a lot of those team fights. So this game, they're saying, hey, let's just pick team champions that are very good in team fights and kind of be able to see if we can win fights from there.
Yeah, totally different texture of the draft here. Neither side have even touched any of the AD carry or the support pool. Galio on the other side. Okay, you said team fighting. I'll call there. Orion and Lotus says, yeah, all right. We're gonna run a Nocturne into your back line. We're gonna Galio out on top of him, and we've got an Akali to finish everyone off with the assassin. So,
Yeah.
definitely some team fighting wombo combo on both teams here so far.
Yeah, I do really like the Galio pick specifically into the Rumble. Obviously, you do have the innate magic shield built into your character, and then you also have the ability to just really feel good about building a lot of magic resistance. So I do really like this pick coming through. Obviously, it does have the ability to go support as well if Mixture does want it. But like you were saying, you do have the ability to have the Nocturne go in with the Oriana on top. And usually for these types of compositions for both these teams, it's usually whoever actually pulls the trigger first is the one that ends up being the more successful one. Because if you're the one actually pulling the trigger, you're the ones that are actually able to decide where you're layering your CC, who you're layering it on, and what's actually happening in the fight, because you're the one dictating it. If you're the one being engaged upon, like if you're having to use your Galio ult defensively, or if you're using Nocturne Ultimate just to turn out the lights and not really have that cohesion coming through, typically things just don't go as smoothly as you'd like them to see. So you see the rest of the bands kind of coming through. Lulu, Caitlyn for the side of Lotus, and Ezreal, Renata. I do like these bands to come through, specifically that Renata and that Ezreal. You obviously want to have champions that don't necessarily have insane mobility like the Ezreal if you're trying to get on top of him and stick on top of him. So kind of curious to see what Shoko is going to end up matching here. I would imagine they probably want to keep the flex open as a possibility for the Galios. They're going to look to possibly pick up the Smolder. It's very, very strong on the patch with the new DFT changes, as well as like how a lot of his builds have changed with trying to get up a lot of those stacks. But so far, this champion definitely is very, very strong. I think at one point his win rate was like a 55% in solo queue.
Yeah, last patch, especially before they nerfed DFT a little bit, he was a scary dragon. That is for sure. Lotus on the other side, gonna lock in the Xayah. We'll see what they want to pair with this. I mean, Rakan would make a lot of sense with their composition. Of course, pairs incredibly well with the Xayah, but the question is, do they want to draft themselves double ranged again, or do they want to just full kind of all in on this team fighting strategy that we're seeing with the Rakan and play a little bit less for lane, at least on the bot side of the map? That is going to be the hover. See what they will lock in. I think this
Yeah,
makes the most sense.
I agree. I think it's suitable for their composition, not only for the fact that it's a great team fighting champ, but also Rakan is definitely, in my opinion, one of the best secondary engaged champions in the game. If he has to
Sure.
go first, it's a little bit awkward for him because he has that innate delay built into his comp, or built into his kit, I should say.
Right.
But if he is able to tag along with the Vi, who's already having to go in with his E and then ultimate afterwards, he has so much ability to just cause a lot of havoc in a lot of these fights. So I really do like that champion, especially into a champion or into a lane specifically like Alistar, where Alistar doesn't really have the ability to really pressure the Rakan. Typically, the lanes that the Xayah Rakan typically struggle into the most is applying like the outranging them or having like extra pressure onto him. Where because Rakan's not the greatest of laners, he only really has his Q ability or his W for poking, which is kind of unreliable because you're having to engage really deep. Alistar's not really the champion that comes to mind that's like, hey, I'm going to lane dominate you.
Yeah. Both these supports kind of taking a different strategy, a different approach to this game number 2, saying, okay, yeah, lane went well on the side of GCC in the bot lane, but we're really able to translate that into anything. So they're gonna switch up the strategy a little bit, play less for that lane, like you're talking about, a little bit more for those team fights. I think one thing that I always want to see with Rumble compositions is ways to enable that equalizer, right? Because obviously that's why you're drafting the Rumble. Like, yeah, he has pretty good laning matchups. He's a relatively safe blind pick for the most part, but you're picking him for that team fight damage and just to kind of lay down that red carpet and try to just really burst as many people as possible. So yeah, they lock in the Vi with it. That can lock down a single member. The Shockwave helps a little bit, but the Rakan, especially with that charm, works incredibly well with that to be able to kind of suck in all of the enemy carries and enemy champions into the Rumble ult and really get that going. On the side of Lotus, though, I mean, it's a team fighting comp, right? Like, they've got the Nocturne to turn off the lights. I feel like that pairs incredibly well with the Alistar engage here as well, right? You kind of get a flank position for your Alistar, then Nocturne says, okay, it's time to go. They can't see anything. Get in there, buddy. And the Alistar can run in and kind of pick off someone and find some of that CC. I don't know exactly how well Smolder goes with like a heavy dive composition like this, but definitely will be a threatening carry if he can find those moments and that uptime.
Yeah, I think I guess Smolder's realistic job in a lot of this game is going to be about surviving, right? Because obviously he's the one that's going to be kind of left behind in a lot of these situations. We have the 4 other champions really diving aggressively forward, causing a lot of that havoc. But he's also the one that's going to be most likely taking the Vi ultimate, plus the Rakan, plus the Rumble. So as long as he is in a relatively good position, he does have good enough range and has the mom over the top to really apply the healing and the extra damage
Sure.
kind of over when those engages do happen. But the biggest thing for me in this situation is how quickly can GCE really pull the trigger in a lot of these fights? Because if they're kind of slow and a little bit more methodical in a lot of these fights, it's gonna be really about like how quickly this Galio is able to absorb a lot of that magic damage over the top. Right, you've got Rumble's Equalizer plus the Shockwave to come through. Obviously, when Galio ultis, he gives his entire team that's in the circle a magic shield. So that will be a very good thing for them to use, both aggressively and defensively. But I think for Lotus's composition, it's going to be about how much havoc they can really cause. Right? You've got Alistar going in, disrupting, Nocturne's ultimate being very disrupting. All these different things happening here. So. I would really like to see exactly how for them to apply just as much pressure as they possibly can.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I have a feeling these teams are getting onto the Rift here relatively soon. Lotus looking to take the series 2-0, and for the Gamers Collecting Club, they need a win here to force game number 3 and prevent themselves from falling into that losers bracket. We'll be back in a couple of minutes here with game number 2. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your patience. A little bit of an extended break there in between Champion Select and getting into game. Couple of issues on the team's end, a couple of client bugs and all that fun stuff. But we are back, we are here, and it is game number 2. Orion Lotus looking to punch their ticket to the next round with a win in this game. And for the gamers collecting, they are needing a win here to keep their run in the winner's bracket alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where, I think both of these compositions, both these teams, really making sure they're able to kind of continue their way through this tournaments. Going down to that losers bracket obviously is obviously not, desired. Just kind of consider the fact that you have to play so many extra best of threes. I mean, you're already having to play I think if you win every single one, it looks to be 6 best of threes all the way across the board. But if you lose some, that's when you start to play somewhere between 8 and 10 best of threes, which is a lot of competitive League of Legends at a very high level. So that can obviously be very tiring and, honestly just kind of daunting, But obviously we're looking at both sides here. We see both junglers obviously pathing towards the bottom side of the map here, which, does kind of make a lot of sense. We've got the volatility of that lane down there. We do see, pretty normal, I would say, keystones and things all the way across the board. The ghost for Paragon instead of the defensive heal to come through, or sorry, barrier, like we see from the Smolder. Everything else does look to be fairly standard this game.
Yep, standard across the board, and we're getting a little bit of a different texture from both sides, Orion. We talked a lot about it in draft. I won't harp on it too much more, but both these teams looking more for the 5v5 explosive team fighting type of League of Legends here in this game, so we're going to see who can perform better on that style. And I want to talk a little bit about game number 1 while we have the chance, because I felt like for Lotus, they showed a lot of confidence, a lot of poise, and just a lot of calmness, right? Like they fell behind a little bit in the game. It would have been easy for Shogo and Mixture to kind of not get tilted, but maybe get a little bit frustrated with how their lane was going and be worried about how that might translate into the mid and the late game for the rest of the team. But never felt like there was a moment of panic from them at all. Yeah, they fell behind a little bit, but they were able to keep their CS score up. They were able to keep the train on the tracks, if you will, and allow the team to still be able to execute in their mid-game fighting. So I thought that was really good. There's a lot of experience on this team. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Schernfire already and his storied history as a former OPL pro, making multiple appearances at Worlds and at MSI back in 2017 and 2018. Shogo as well, I want to give a shout out, has been a little bit of a legend in the CLOL scene for a number of years. Has won the CLOL championship twice, came second once, and played a lot of years for the University of St. Thomas as well as the University of Mississippi, so a lot of experience there. For Reppy, Mixture, and Gygar, they've all played for a few years here as, top side. Sternfire looking to get involved in the action. Gygar lands the taunt. Oh no, he's under tower, and Vega's here as well. Gets the knock up into the punch, and that will be first blood into the collecting jungler.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think there'd be too much action there. Obviously, the jungler was in the area, but just a slight little bit step of a too far forward there, unfortunately, does end up resulting in the first blood. Obviously, going over there, we see this is a slight little replay here. Gygar, unfortunately, was underneath that tower there. I've heard a lot of people kind of complain about this year's turret range. Obviously, it hasn't changed. But for some reason, people are always like, "Hey, it feels like it's been a little bit extended." In some way, so maybe Gygar felt like he was either in front of the minions or behind the minions, or just wasn't quite able to be in range. But ultimately, it is just one singular kill. It doesn't usually mean all that much when one kill happens, but it is going to very much accelerate the Vi's game this game.
Yeah, the Vi loves to get into the early action and get involved in the map. Probably not going to do too much for the Rumble in this matchup. The Galio should be able to neutralize that anyways here for Gygar, but yeah. Definitely nice to get involved on the Vi. I feel like you've made an impact. Didn't even have to burn a summoner spell for that one either, so still has the flash available for a flash vault breaker or something of the sort. But yeah, I mean, I was talking to Ryan about a lot of the experience on this team, so I don't think that Lotus is going to shirk back after an early kill here by any means. They're still going to be feeling confident and Fire especially is going to be just looking to continue farming, get that level 6 on Nocturne, and then we'll see where he wants to turn his attention towards.
Yeah, and I think for sure, obviously, like you were saying, with the experience, it obviously does help a lot. But what really helps is the fact that you're able to kind of, withstand a lot of that early pressure and be able to recognize that you're still able to make things happen on the map when things don't go well. And I think that's the thing that Lotus has done the best so far in a lot of these games, especially going back to yesterday, and even in that first game, like both games, they have fallen behind early, and they've really had to kind of claw their way back into it, and by making sure they're pushing out their side lanes, they're applying a lot of that pressure. But right now, it does look like GCEs is going to try to put the pressure on early first as the Vice try to do the dragon here, but going to end up backing out. And unfortunately, until we get level 6s, it's going to be really hard for either team to get very sticky with a lot of their engages. But Fire is back on this dragon. Vega is still in the area, though.
Yeah, neither team really looking to commit. They don't want to take too much damage from the dragon and make it easier for the other side to find an engage. Obviously, great engage options on both sides, but Fire is going to be like, okay, you know what? I'm playing Nocturne. I would really like to hit my level 6. Let's not take a flippy dragon fight early in this one. And so, GCCE are going to be able to invest a little bit of extra time. They get back onto the dragon, and they are able to take that one out. So first objective of the game goes over to them. Fire, though, and Reppy looking to the top side as we see an engage here onto Shogo, going to get rooted up by the feathers and into the feather storm as Mixture tries to provide space but cannot do that. Mom comes down, but it's too little too late for Shogo as we see the Nocturne ultimate used on the top side. Stonen did have to flash away from this engagement. Reppy now looking to follow this one up, has the perfect execution and will in fact use it to get the kill. Vega now is going to be able to just leave, not able to save his top laner, but able to save his own life. So cross-map plays on either side, as a dive here onto Mixture is going to put him in a little bit of trouble. Does have the flash to get away from the Feather Call, and Paragon's taking a lot of tower shots here. Flashes, but the tower will still follow. Mixture gets the outplay to get a kill back.
Yeah, almost really well played there, but from Paragon. But honestly, if you're Paragon, giving a kill over to Alistar when you're able to pick up 2 kills is just fantastic there on that play. I do believe we are going to see a replay of this initial play here. We see the Nocturne ultimate being flashed away there, but Reppy doing a good job saying, hey, this guy's going to posture forward. I'm just going to ulti or E over the wall, and then using that perfect execution to pick up the kill here onto Sunyan. Vega not quite really able to stick around because due to a 3 versus 1, but really, I'm surprised. What I'm most surprised about all this play was the fact that Shogo was just outright killed in the bottom side of the map. Rakan not even level 6 yet, so wasn't really able to layer the CC that he's actually able to really kind of do in the bottom side of the map, but so this is going to be that, actually this is a play for Mixture here. Here's the replay. Paragon, obviously, like I said, they're going to use the ability to kind of layer that CC. Good flash here by Mixture to dodge out from the feathers. But ultimately, like I said, Paragon, unfortunately, not quite able to get out of turret range there. Just a little bit too far. But still, like I said, you're going to take that trade any day of the week. And he is almost already at Yuntal.
Yeah, GCC definitely feeling that phantom turret change that you're talking about in this one, Orion. Paragon, the second victim of the extended turret range there. But yeah, 2 kills now onto the 80 carry for Gamers Collecting. And they now seem to have pretty great control here of the bot side. Yub's going to look forward, actually going to get headbutted back into the tower, but has his partner in the Xayah to dash back to from the extended range. They do also have Vega in the back pocket, but yeah, Shogo and Mixture just playing very respectfully now in this lane as they're kind of forced to, but here comes the Nocturne. Knockup comes through, it's going to be a charm down, lots of damage on either side. Flash forward from the Rakan, he's still alive, and he charms up the enemy carry. Fire and Shogo able to finish that one off, as now they're going to turn it back around onto Fire himself. Paragon trying to kite this one out the opposite direction, gets the fruit from the feathers. It's a double kill for Shogo, it's a double kill for for Vega. It's a 3 for 2, ultimately in favor of GCCE.
Yeah, slight little exchange there from the river of the Red Bee as well. We are going to obviously toss into replay here. We see the initial gain coming through from Yubs. This is going to be he gets knocked back in, but the nice part about having Xayah with Rakan is you're able to dash incredibly far to get back into safety. And then we see, okay, Nocturne's like, okay, we're going to look for the engage here. Xayah still having her ultimate Feather Storm, able to nullify a lot of that extra damage there, and great CC layering onto Shogo to really make sure he's able to pick up that kill there. And good kiting here from Paragon, recognizing that Shogo went the bottom half of the way and is actually able to kind of path up. But the last little sneeze coming through from the Smolder with the Eschew there to pick up that extra little bit of needed damage to solidify that kill. So we see, continuous action here happening again. Grubs being taken, trying to wrap around here. Nocturne, no ultimate.
Fire and the rest of Lotus maybe trying to collapse. That's going to be a Galio ultimate down, but maybe a little bit too early, as now they're going to dive onto the backline. Yubs is going to be the target, taunted up, taken down by Reppy. Everyone else able to get out from GCCE, but Lotus do claim one, and they're going to get their way back onto the Grubs to at least get the one pickup for themselves.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about a little bit as this game does kind of go forward, is you've got the ability to really make sure that they're able to apply a lot of pressure. Actually, Shogo. Ooh, just barely able to survive there with that little bit of barrier. Mom over the top, maybe?
The mom into the sneeze. Achu secures him another one. And Paragon not going to be feeling too happy about that one.
Yeah, Turret coming in nice and clutch there. But like I was saying in Champs a little bit, oftentimes whoever ends up pulling the trigger first in these types of compositions, they're the ones that have success. Actually, flash forward.
Speaking of pulling the trigger, that's the trigger being pulled and Sonin going down. Fire and Geigar teaming up with some CC chain and the Nocturne ult to get their man on the top side.
Yeah, nice use of momentum. Reppy actually going for 1v3.
Reppy does get charmed up, but the shockwave goes wide. Yub's not quite able to get in range to follow that one up, but Reppy, in a 1 versus 3 situation, dodges everything and almost turns it around onto Avers.
Yeah, thankfully a good heal there from Yubs that last little bit of second. Otherwise, that would have actually just been an outright kill there going the way of Reppy. So well played by him to make sure that his mid laner didn't die. But like you said, Reppy doing a good job basically taking the initial brunt of the play. And this is that chase down coming through from Paragon. Obviously, the barrier just able to keep him alive. But the nice AoE here, just barely able to clip Paragon on the side there. And then the initial Achu afterwards to really to secure the kill. And the Smolder, obviously was kind of falling behind a little bit early, but is now starting to get some headway into this game. Don't quite know how many stacks he has. At some point, I would like to get a stack check coming through from the Smolder just to see really how many stacks he truly has. But he is definitely in a position where I would say he's probably pretty close to 120 or so, or like 100 or say. But hopefully he will be able to kind of, work his way into once he gets that 225 number, that's when he becomes a literal dragon of some sorts.
A good update from production there. It looks like he's about to hit that 100 mark or thereabouts. 94 just a few moments ago, so that's going to be getting about halfway to that power spike that you were talking about. Coach Fire has to be a little bit careful here. Does have the spell shield, but now going to get rooted up, going to get knocked up into the air, and yeah, unfortunately, Fire just a little bit out of position there. Maybe didn't realize quite how many members of Gamers Collecting were in the area, but they're going to secure that kill. Now onto the Dragon, hoping to get their second objective of the game.
Yeah, unfortunately, walking in by himself there. Nice layering of CC. They were able to get the initial spell shut off the W there, but it does look like Lotus is still trying to possibly posture here. Galio is roaming down. He does have the ultimate. Reppy is coming around from the side.
Yeah, there it is. Shogo's going to be the target, though. He's going to get cease and desisted, and he's just going to get blown up as unstoppable goes the Vi. Reppy gets ulted on the other side as Avarice tries to prevent his way into the fight. Geiger and Mixture now. Yeah, they're two tanky boys, but they don't have a whole lot of damage to do too much in this fight. Vega will find the chase down. They'll also get Mixture on the other side. Vega 6-0, and now they will secure the objective.
Yeah, Nocturne is in the area if he really wanted to try, but it does look like Featherstorm is available still for Paragons. We're going to get the initial replay here. Like I was saying, Geigar is in the area, but nice recall ultimate with the Vi over the top, and Shogo not quite tanky enough to survive the initial play, and it's going to actually end up resulting in the kill there. And really, the rest of the members, without the Smolder and without Reppy really being in a really good position, they just have no way of actually trying to contest any sort of a fight here, as the rest of the members are picked up from the side of GCE. And very similarly, it's going to keep happening kind of over and over again. Whoever is actually willing to kind of pull that initial fight off and use all of their go buttons to really go forward, they're the ones that are going to end up having the most success to kind of continue throughout all of these fights.
Yeah, that has been a consistent trend throughout this game. It feels like in pretty much every single fight, other than maybe that kind of messy one that happened bot side. I don't know who you want to say started that fight, and I don't know who you want to say won that fight, but that one was maybe an exception. But 10-7 is the kill score. Gold's still relatively similar. It's about a 1,000 gold for the Gamers Collecting Club. They also have, obviously, those two dragons that they've picked up early on in this one, and so they feel like they've got things going their way. Reppy with a roam into the top side here. So just some lane rotations from Lotus as they put their Smolder into the mid lane a little bit safer in the shorter lane to try and scale up with those stacks. Reppy is going to look to take over in the top side here against the Rumble, and it looks like Gygar probably going to expend the TP, to answer the bot lane wave here. So finally figuring out exactly where they want those solo laners to be. And we're just going to hit a little bit of some mid-game farming low here, about 15 minutes in.
Yeah, no major. Obviously, well, the Herald is alive if they wanted to play for that major objective, but with Dragon just being killed, there's not really too much really to play for. So really, right at this point in the game, it's really going to be about which team is able to kind of posture their vision line aggressively, able to kind of, because with these teams being very much pick-oriented team fight compositions, if you have good standing with a lot of these fights and you're able to kind of establish what type of fight you really want to have and what kind of buttons you really want to push, you're going to ones being successful. So you see Gygar is the one making the play up the river, but Orianna is TPing in. Lights going off.
Here comes the engage. The Galio's not in range just yet. Mom over the top. Did you have some damage coming down? And now it is going to be that grand entrance from the the Galio. First of all is the Vi. They get the shutdown here as Gygar just wreaking havoc in the backline. Avers fails his flash over the blue buff wall. The Herald is picked up on the backside of the fight, but Lotus still looking for the chase down Paragon. Putting a couple extra feathers into the back of Mixture as he disengages from the fight. Shogo over the wall. Looking to maybe put some pressure onto Sonnen under the tower here. Lotus aren't done. They've got eyes for more kills. Schernfire's going to trade his life for the cause. They do get one on the backside. They get the objective as well with the Rift Herald, and they're going to secure this turret in the top side. So Lotus, again, able to find a huge mid-game fight.
Yeah, I like the fact that GCE is trying to go for that Rift Herald there, but I wish they would have turned maybe a little bit quicker. Orianna's TP obviously was a little bit late, kind of towards the back end. The second she TPs, the lights are already out, and they're already kind of pushing those buttons forward. We see the Rakan ultimate obviously going in to layer the CC with the Equalizer, but the Galio's ultimate shield, the magic shield, doing a lot of work there on the very back end. We see Shogo is completely healthy on the back end of this play, and even though like the rest of the members, of Lotus are all still alive, Sunyan has no real place to go in this situation. Shogo kind of cuts him off here. And even though Sternfire does end up dying, it is still a 4-for-1 on the back end there for Lotus, and able to obviously pick up this top tower here as the result of it as well. So I think if you're Sternfire, you're perfectly okay making that play happen as long as it is to secure your Smolder getting even stronger. This is a champion that is just going to, even though like it's a champion that has like a normal AD carry, it doesn't build like a normal AD carry does. It usually actually builds more of that bruisery type of build, like you see Black Clover already in item slot. Probably Spear of Shojin as well going to come through. So like tanking your items that can actually help him survive a lot of this burst, and especially like with how these team fights are playing out, his stacks are just continuously growing, and I would not be surprised if he's already at some like we're getting closer and closer to that 200 number.
Yeah, we're actually going to update us on that shortly, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, when you see Shogo on this Smolder, as he is at about 180 stacks, so getting closer and closer to that 225 power spike. When he's untouched in these fights, I mean, you talk about how he's tanky. That fight, it didn't really matter how tanky he was, right? Like, no one could even touch him. He was just like, all right, guys, I'm here. I'm breathing fire. He tossed his mom over the top with that Galio ultimate to layer some damage. And then kind of after the initial engage had come through, that was when he could go forward and look to go for the flap aggressively and start getting some damage down with those Qs, as this is going to be the engage onto him here. Galio ultimate to provide a massive magic shield. The Shockwave used as well, but Shogo still standing up in this fight. On the other side, the engage is going to go onto Yubs, but it's actually the Vi that's first to fall. Mixture with the flash into the pulverize, into the chase down. He gets the stun onto Paragon as they get the Rakan as well. Yubs in the Death Chamber. Paragon now turning this one around onto the Alistair, but you can't milk those, at least not this time. It's going to be Lotus getting a couple kills on their side.
Yeah, and that right there is one of the benefits of being a little bit tankier here. As I'll hopefully we're going to see if here comes that replay here. So Shogo actually is the one initially engaged upon, but you see Shockwave over the top with the initial engage there from the Vi. But the key person that is missing out of all of this is that Rumble. This is a 5 versus 4 that GCE is opting into, saying, hey, we can win this fight, but I mean, these champions are obviously very good at disengaging and then chasing afterwards, like the Nocturne, like the Akali. So if you're not able to land that initial engage and pick somebody off, your composition just runs out of gas very, very quickly with this comp, especially when you don't have one of your main team fighting champions a part of the play. So I think, GCE is just mistaking the fact that they just did not quite have the numbers necessary to really take on that fight, and slowly but surely really starting to kind of fall behind. And when you're falling behind a champion like Smolder that just keeps on scaling, it's going to be really hard to kind of get themselves back into this game.
Yeah, definitely tough. And especially with the Nocturne on the other side, right? Like, that engage, if the Rumble is there, maybe goes a little bit better, but with the amount of confusion okay, Reppy just says, hey, you're not allowed to be here. This is my top lane, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Picks up his 6th kill of the game, but if the engage comes through, as actually we're going to get another fight. That's on to Mixture, though. Not sure that's the engage that GCC necessarily want. Now the Nocturne ult does come down, double TP into the mid lane. It is going to be no one dead just yet. Shogo does actually take out Vega on the backside, and yeah, I don't really know what the plan was there from GCCE. They engaged onto the Alistar, and then it just all fell apart from there. Lotus pick up 3 more kills.
Yeah, honestly, to me, seems a little bit desperate there. Obviously, like you said, engaging in the initial engage there onto Mixture. That is an Alistar with an unbreakable will, taking a lot of extra damage reduction on top of him naturally just being a little bit tanky here. So this is going to be a solo kill from Reppy here onto Sunyan. Just no real way of actually getting away from this Kali. Honestly, saw him on Vision the entire time. Yeah, exactly. Definitely had all the time in the world to end up getting out of that play. As we do see, this is going to be the engage here onto Mixture. I think if they would have went initially onto Shogo when he was right over the wall, it could have been possible. But you see here, here's the engagement. Then you're also going to see Vega take himself way into the tier 1 tower with no one actually helping him in that situation. Really just spread out type of team fight here. And they're a composition that does not want to spread out. They all want to stay together, kind of like a big ball, clump up together, and that's when they're actually able to have a little power in these team fights with the Shockwave, with the feathers from the Xayah, with the Rumble over the top, obviously, but obviously he was dead from Reppy from the side. But once again, taking a fight 5 versus 4 in a play where they were already not being very successful on the initial engage. So honestly, a little bit of questionable decisions kind of coming through, a little bit of desperations possibly from GCE, looking for another engage.
They do have members in the area, but the Galio ultimate is going to come down. Nocturne ult again to wreak havoc into the backside. It is just Yubs going down as he looks for the engage. Coach Fire now right over the wall onto the enemy AD carry. He will get that kill. Vi gets yoinked over the wall, but it's not going to matter. The damage will follow nonetheless. And I think, Orion, it's another desperation attempt from Gamers Collecting. Coach Fire actually isn't done here. Gets the fear onto Avers. The flash from the Orianna will take him over the wall. Shockwave onto Mixture is not quite going to be enough damage to finish off the cow. And Lotus, they just completely own the map at this point.
Yeah, like I was saying just a second ago, just trying to do a little bit too much here. I know that I understand the fact that this is a situation they're in. They're down a lot of gold, but trying to force as hard as they're forcing onto the people they're forcing. Exactly, they're trying to force so hard. And there's Gygar has the ultimate over the top. Reppy's already here. I think this is 3 fights in a row where they have not had a numbers advantage. And also being down 8,000 gold. So typically when you're ahead, you're able to kind of, make these fights a little bit easier because you have the numbers advantage. But unfortunately, they just did not quite have that ability to really take that fight in. And, it's just desperation mode at this point for GCE, trying to claw their way back into this game. But unfortunately, it's just not quite working out for them.
Yeah, I mean, you see Sonnen, TPing in after the fight is basically done. He drops the ultimate onto Gygar only and doesn't even cut through his magic damage shield.
Yeah.
That's not what you want your Rumble to be doing. And the other thing about these engages is I don't feel like they're really on important targets, right? The last fight we said, okay, it's on the Alistar. This time it was on Coach Fire, who was able to shield the initial engage, force them to commit even further into that fight. But even if you blow up the Nocturne, does that really do that much for you? This might actually be a decent pick attempt. Gaga with the flash, has the magic shield to try and stay alive. Ultimate from Fire is just going to turn off the lights and try to make it a little bit more difficult for them to find this chase down, but eventually they will burn down the Galio. It is a little bit of shutdown gold into the pockets of Vega in the jungle, but let's take a look at the map state here because Lotus owns the other 2 lanes. They are pushing up and knocking on the door of these inhibitor towers.
Yeah, make sure you're going to look for Avers here.
They're diving. They're diving. They're in the door. They have entered. And they have killed the enemy mid laner.
Yeah, unfortunately, like you were saying, like even though they're able to pick up that Galio there, they had to use a lot of their resources to just even pick up that kill. So with Avers trying to walk up without having Shockwave, there's just no way to stop them from actually entering here. And I do like the attempt. It's basically saying, hey, we can actually use our resources up here to kill Gygar. Unfortunately for Gygar, that slight backstep was actually just enough range to get Vega to click onto him with his own ultimate and just really able to chase him down here and was able to pick up the kill. But, honestly, Lotus got just as much, if not more, by pushing in those two side lanes here. Like I was saying, Avers, was able to kind of use Shockwave here to potentially able to kind of posture off here, but unfortunately, with Alistar tanking up, there's just no way this champion is ever dying underneath this tower, and the rest of the members aren't really there able to really help him out afterwards either.
Yeah, 10,000 gold lead now for the side of Lotus, or just under. They've picked up the last 2 dragons in this game, so there's no threat of soul on either side just yet, but 2 ocean dragons on Lotus is just going to make them feel that much better at weathering the storm and kind of surviving some of these engages if Gamers Collecting can find a decent angle. But right now, Lotus just owns the map. They're dropping vision in the topside river. They've got their attention pulled towards this barren side of the map that's spawned in just over a minute. And as long as they don't do any crazy shenanigans, they should have a relatively safe setup for this objective.
Yeah, definitely. With it spawning in a minute or so, it's going to be so hard, really, for TC to even try to possibly contest, because a lot of their engage is just kind of like front-facing, just running through you. And when you're down this much gold, it's not like you have a reliable way of dealing damage from far away. You don't have that long-range poke like a Varus we saw in the first game. You don't really have the ability to just kind of your damage is very front-facing and just run at you, run through you. And now, obviously, with how far ahead Lotus actually is, you're seeing very tanky items on the Smolder. GA for him. You've got a stasis item on the Akali. And you've got a very tanky Galio over the top. It's going to be very, very hard to even try to deal with them.
Sonen's got to flash away as Schernfire is looking for a pick here before the objectives are going to spawn. Gygar can't quite get in range for the taunt. There it is. Red carpet does get laid down. It does do a little bit of damage onto Schernfire, but no one in the area to try and follow up on that one. So a nice side lane pick from the Nocturne. That's what he's good at, and Schernfire will take advantage.
Yeah, especially with the members in the area of TCE not quite being there, it definitely helps when you're able to kind of just pick up that kill, because now obviously they have to deal with that extra side lane, even though the Baron is now up on the map. It's just a Gygar potentially face checking, but doing a good job recognizing that he's kind of alone here. No, Reppy just said TP if he wants to join.
He's very alone here. Shockwave used, cease and desist as well, and Gygar will once again be a sacrifice. Just overstaying a little bit. Schernfire was recalling in the bot side, but let's take a look at this Rumble dying once again.
Yeah, obviously Schernfire doing a good job pushing out here. The taunt of Gygar just barely able to get in range to kind of pick up that kill there. I thought for a second Avers may look for a Shockwave here when that first initial Q landed, but it probably wouldn't have ended up resulting in much, even if it was to be casted. Unfortunately, you see Reppy potentially posturing around Yubs here.
Yeah, Nocturne ulti. The target is going to be Vega. He tries to evacuate the premises, flashes over the wall. Is able to gain a little bit of space and get himself out of there safe, but now no flash for the Vi engage. Does mean that they can't quite engage from as far away.
Yeah. And very important, though, is the fact that he did end up surviving, right? Because the Baron is alive. He didn't use his GA, so he is still a possible threat for a steal, which is obviously very important at this stage of the game. If he was ended up perish there, it would have been a complete... There's just no way they could ever walk into this Baron pit. And I do think that, I understand what Lotus is doing here, but I feel like they could possibly be maybe a little bit more aggressive in a lot of these situations. But obviously with Gygar kind of falling down in that bot lane, it was kind of hard really to do so. But now that all 5 members are up here in this area, I expect complete control to come through from the side of Lotus, even potentially even starting up this Baron, saying, hey, we want you guys to come into us because we're up 10,000 gold. We have all of these items in our inventory, and we're actually able to, there's just not really much that GCE can do unless there's a positioning mistake like we've seen a couple of times in this last couple of fights.
Baron down to 6k. There was a ward in the pit. They know that they're on it. They now control ward. Vega is in the area. Could push forward, but actually it's going to be Lotus that pulled the trigger into the backside. They engage kind of on 2 fronts here, though. They do get the Rumble down early, and now Coach Fire is going to give his life. Shogo goes godlike Shogo, and Reppy in this fight are just doing so much damage. Vega and Avers still alive, but They're on the wrong side of the map, and they are running for the hills. Those hills do not belong to them, as Gagar, Reppy, and Mixture are going to try and chase this one down eventually. They do flash forward. They pick up the Orianna. The GA from Vega is just going to mean he dies again. They don't get the Baron Orion, but they get every single member of the enemy team, and they've got a Shogo in the base.
Yeah, exactly. I think this fight's a little bit split up here. We see this is the initial play where Geiger does take a chunk of damage here. And honestly, I think, for the side of GCE, they did a pretty good job of actually splitting them up and not actually having all the members engaging. They did a somewhat decent job kind of kiting back, but unfortunately, Reppy is just so strong in these fights, actually able to obliterate the Rumble on the backside there. They were actually able to pick up that one initial kill there on Schernfire with the work of Avers and Vega, but unfortunately, just with that backside just being absolutely torn apart by Reppy, there just wasn't much they really could do. And like you said, Shogo, recognizing that these last couple of kills were to be picked up here by his teammates, he said, I'm just going to go push mid lane, maybe possibly set up a potential to take up that inhibitor tower. Unfortunately, wasn't quite able to pick up that inhibitor, but at this point, it kind of does feel like a bit of a formality as they are back towards that Baron once again to say, hey, we won last time. If you're going to choose to kind of come back, the result is probably going to be fairly similar.
Geiger doesn't have ult for maybe 10 or 15 seconds, but it doesn't matter. Schernfire is fearless into the backside. He sees an enemy carry, and he's just going to flash right on top. That's going to be the Rumble ultimate thrown down. It does get one back, but oh my goodness. The carries from Lotus have entered the fight, and that means that GCCE will get their health bars absolutely melted.
Yeah, Akali is TPing into that bottom lane. They do have a wave in the mid lane as well. Respawn timers are not for about another 30 seconds on the members that truly matter. So Lotus could be potentially posturing for an in-game here. The wave clear isn't the greatest on champions like Xayah and the Vi. It's just a fight happening here.
Yeah, Geiger uses the ultimate to dissuade any sort of engage attempt onto Reppy there. Vega maybe looking for a cheeky pickoff in the bot side, but it looks like Lotus, they're going to be content with just a couple of inhibitors. They have their eyes on this dragon, but let's take a look at this engage again.
Yeah, like you said, Geigar didn't quite have his ultimate yet, but with how strong Reppy and really Shogo are in these fights, it just does not matter. Once again, Surefire just completely saying, hey, like, I will give my life so you guys can look awesome in a lot of these fights. Reppy there, he has a full stack Medjais. He is 11-0-5 on this Akali, just completely taking over all of these team fights. And, obviously, they did somewhat okay that initial engage. The Yubs obviously did a good job charming everybody up, trying to buy a little bit of space. But at this point, with how much of a gold deficit there truly is, there's just not really much GCE can truly do about it. They just don't have enough in the tank. And even if they were to possibly pick up a kill on, let's say, Shogo or let's say Reppy, the rest of the members of Lotus are just as strong as Reppy is in this current situation. So unfortunately for them, not quite able to pick up that kill as Orianna's trying to TP out of this top lane. I don't think he'd be able to. Oh, just barely.
He's following.
Oh, not
from downtown. Sherd fires into the base. He'll get shockwaved. Stuck in a 1v1 here. Avers will get the kill. Schernfire definitely took a long journey there. And actually, the rest of GCCE were able to secure that dragon while that was happening. So that's at least something for them.
Yeah, it's definitely something. It's a fairly decent deal considering the fact that it does put them at Dragon Soul Point. Unfortunately, I just don't know if they're actually going to be able to get to that dragon spawn timer in the next 5 minutes or so, just due to the fact that they are as far behind as they are. But very funny interaction happening there from the Schernfire. It kind of reminds me of those like Chinese TikToks or whatever, where you've got the characters like flying across the screen and doing all these random things. But still able to kind of pick up the kill there. I kind of want to see exactly how close he was. Yeah, here we go. So we see Schernfire. He's going to possibly look for his ultimate here. He just barely wasn't quite able to land, and you can see him just twirling like a torpedo, trying to connect. He even throws a backwards cue. He's like, take me away! But unfortunately...
If only Reppy could have landed the shuriken flip and followed as well.
Oh, that would have been awesome. To have both the characters flying in, that would have been really, really cool. Unfortunately for him, his character is determined to go. The second he clicks, he has to follow through with his destination. But obviously, super minions are pushing in here in the mid lane and the bot side. They do have the pressure of those cannon minions baroned up here in the side lane. So really, it's going to have to become a bit of a last-ditch effort here for GCE.
Comes the engage. Shockwave is flashed away from both of the carries, or at least from Shogu, and now Coach fires into the backside. Reppy is just wreaking havoc. They're going to have Vagar looking to use that ultimate, but there is nothing they can do. Orion, you said whoever pushes the go button wins the fight. Well, Lotus pushed the gold button, and you know what? A 14,000 gold lead doesn't hurt. They're going to take the clean 2-0 here against GCCE, and they're going to punch their ticket into round 4 of the winners bracket of the Open Qualifiers.
Absolutely. They looked very solid in this one. Obviously, there was a couple moments here, hit or miss in a couple of those team fights, but for the most part, the second they said, hey, we're going to push our buttons and we're going to initially start a lot of these fights, that's when they started having a lot of success. And unfortunately for GCE, this game, a little bit of disconnection at times, a little bit not so coordinated in a lot of those fights, which ended up causing a lot of their problems, especially when you're playing a composition like this that kind of relies upon all of their buttons essentially being pushed in sync and in correct orders and having people set up in the right areas. You really need to make sure your team is properly coordinated and basically being like, okay, like you have to know who's in what areas at what moments at what times and actually able to layer those damaging abilities together. Fairly similar to what we saw from Lotus's composition, you know? And then even when they tried to make those engages, once they fell behind with the Galio ultimate over the top to protect the Smolder, there wasn't really too much that GCE really could do towards the back end of those team fights.
Yeah, it became very difficult, and the target that they're going for with some of those team fights and those coordination plays is ever shifting, right? So they have to be constantly on top of it and being like, okay, this carry doesn't have flash, so let's look for the Vial here. We want to layer that with this ability and make sure our Rumble's in the area. So there's a lot of like order of operations that they have to go through, right? They have to be like, okay, who's the most important target? What resources do they have? What resources do we have? And how can we best layer those? And what order can we best use them in? So definitely execution bar on that composition pretty high, and like you say, once they fell behind, it just becomes that much more difficult. You've got a Smolder that you're trying to kill that has a GA and is building all these health stats and this life steal and omnivamp, and it became very, very difficult. But I think for Lotus, a well-deserved win, both their carries looking incredible in this game, and I think Schernfire, while maybe not being like a standout performer, really showing that game knowledge and that veteran prowess that he brings, right? You said it best in one of those fights, Ryan. He's like, I'm going to die so that you guys can look good. And he did that over and over, showing that willingness to give up his life for the team.
Yeah, and obviously, Lotus moving on to the next round, the upper brackets, but it is a rolling start. So I do believe they are actually preparing for their next possible start here against Meslo's family, I believe is who they're playing. Yeah, it's going to be Meslo's family coming up here. So we could possibly even be jumping into the next stage of the bracket immediately here.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll take a short little break here. Everyone get a drink of water, grab a bathroom break. We got round 4 coming up shortly here, so we'll be back soon. We'll see you then. welcome back everybody to round number 4 of the NA Open qualifiers here at the NACL. I'm Lindor once again here with Orion, bringing you this Lotus action. We're jumping right into the draft here. Orion, Lotus taking on Meslo's family. Obviously, both of these teams 3-0 up to this point, looking for another win to remain here in the winner's bracket. And bans are starting to hit the table here already.
Yeah, both these teams actually haven't even dropped a singular game yet in this tournament. So both these teams having a lot of confidence going into this one. Obviously, lots of bans that have come through for both sides. Really, we've seen Lotus actually have a lot of success with champions like the Lucian, like the Akali. So go ahead and trying to get those direct takeaways away from them so far. And one of the great things that Riot has obviously come up with is giving teams selections on both things. So it is going to look a little bit weird. Lotus obviously is on the blue side, but they get second pick this game, and Meslo's family is going to be on the red side, but they actually get the very first pick of the draft.
Yeah, a little bit interesting. Basically, the way that works in this tournament is the higher seeded team gets to decide whether they want to choose to pick first or if they want to choose their side. If they choose first pick, the other team gets to select what side they'd like, and vice versa. So one team, the higher seed, gets choice of either choice. The other team gets to then choose the other option, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Nautilus, Akali, and Lucian are going to be the bans here. From Meslo's family, Varus, Oriana, and Udyr on the side for Lotus. And it's a game 1 karma here once again, Orion.
Yeah, gotta love the Karma pick. Unfortunately, it is just a very lane dominant support. We kind of saw that in that first game with the Varus kind of combination to come through. Obviously, that one is banned. The next most likely option is going to be that Ezreal kind of pick to come through. So curious to see if it's going to be a kind of like a takeaway possibility here to come through. But instead, it's going to be a very similar thing they picked in that first game for Lotus. It's going to be that very exact same combination in the Nami, in the Xin Zhao. But Lucian is banned away from them in this one, so gonna have to take a different route in terms of what the AD carry is. One of the options I did mention as a possibility is Shogo is a big Draven player who is a very good Nami combination. So, or they could obviously go that Corki route depending on what exactly they want. So, kind of curious to see what is going to end up happening here.
Yeah, the Corki could be played. Shogo, not really a Corki player. Like, I'm sure he's played it in the
Yeah.
past, but this split, especially, in the solo queue, at least hasn't been his best champion ever. Seeing the Draven would be a little crazy, but yeah, you're always looking for those good Nami pairings. Speaking of good bot lane pairings, though, it is going to be the Ezreal there paired up with the Karma, so the classic bot lane duo for the side of Meslo's family. They're going to be feeling pretty confident about that double range kind of harass lane that they've got for themselves.
Yeah, like I said, just a very common pairing here. Driving the fourth over the top as well. Oh, actually, I ended up going choosing the Wukong, so the more traditional engage there from that option. So curious to see exactly how the rest of their composition is going to get rounded out here. But they got a very strong bot lane duo there. Going to have a lot of priority there in that bot side, unless they end up matching the amount of threat that they possibly could have down here. Obviously, kind of curious to see what the actual pairing here is with Anami. I'd imagine it's going to be the AD carry here. Possible hover here of the Vayne. Okay, it is actually going to end up being the Vayne. The Vayne has gained a lot of traction up specifically in the top lane. I don't know if Gygar has been recently playing it or not. Obviously, they do scrims and all that stuff, but solo queue records don't necessarily indicate that he's been playing a whole lot of Vayne. But it is one of those champions that can actually go reliably up in that top side, and it is actually been doing fairly well in professional levels of play.
Shogo, second most played so far this split is Vayne. So I feel like
There you go.
it's assumed that it'll go down there.
Mhm.
It has the Nami, of course, to provide, some extra healing and the peel for the Vayne, which you always love to see. But yeah, definitely good to mention. Like, it could be flexed if they're feeling a little frisky. But we'll see what they do go for. Second phase of bans here. Neither side has picked a mid laner. Neither side has picked a top laner. So we're getting some bans thrown towards those solo lanes here in the second phase.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see like what the actual like mid lane pairing is going to be with the Xin Zhao. Obviously, the last game we saw from Lotus, it was that Aurora pick to come through, and we saw the AOE kind of destruction they were able to have in a lot of those team fights was a very threatening. But obviously, you're going to have like right now, the competition definitely is lacking the ability to get on top of the Ezreal. So I'm kind of curious to see if it's going to be more of like that RA option that has that deep engage, or if they are going to go kind of similar to what we saw in that first game from Lotus, and just kind of stick to normal with what would be the Aurora pick to kind of come through.
Right.
Bans obviously is strictly kind of towards mid lane. We saw Annie and Cassiopeia being banned away, and then from the side of Meslo's family, they ended up going with the Galio and the Scion, more specifically tailored towards Gygar up in that top side. So um, obviously, they chose red side for a reason. They probably want a very strict counter. Gonna end up going with that Aurora, like we just mentioned here. Obviously, Reppy had a very solid game on it. And then they're gonna look to see if they can continue that momentum going into game number 2.
Yep. Yep, definitely a comfort pick there, as we saw in the previous match with the Akali band away and they needing some dive options. I guess, yeah, they prefer the Aurora, at least in this composition, than the Ahri, like you were mentioning. On the other side for Lotus, they're thinking about this global presence ultimate of the Twisted Fate that is going to be the lock-in. Has a range advantage in the mid lane, so should be relatively safe there. And then we'll just look to kind of influence the map with that Twisted Fate ultimate.
Yeah, I think another one of the things too that is great about Destiny is the fact that it does reveal the entire squad. So anytime Vayne is able to go like it was a tumble, right, or the invisibility tumble from her ultimate from Final Hour, she is able to be revealed by
Yep.
Twisted Fate's ultimate. Um, Gonna potentially go more for possibly the tankier side of things here. Obviously, with the Galio being banned, Rumble option, they don't necessarily have the clear exact counter that they may be possibly looking for. But obviously, it is going to be, with the possibility of the Rumble being picked up here. There's always those champions like Cassante that could also be picked up here. But gonna go with the simple Ornn here. Does help them with that kind of long range front to back form of engage that they'd really like to have. And really, for me, it's gonna be a lot about that single target damage hitting the person that's in front of you. And really trying to take them down before advancing further on. Vayne obviously is great at dealing with single target champions with her true damage from her W, and the chase down ability from all the other champions within the kit can be very devastating afterwards. Where I do really like the snap engage coming through from Meslo's family. They had the Twisted Fate gold card with the Rumble over the top with Wukong Cyclone as well to really kind of keep people locked up, like we talked about in that last game. So really, the snap engage from Meslo's family versus the front to back team fighting of Lotus is going to be the kind of the picture in picture of this one.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Orion. I've been wrong before, surprisingly. They for Meslo's family feels a little bit like they're drafting a little bit more for lane. Like, yes, they have some team fighting synergies there with the Wukong and the Rumble, but it feels like they should be able to win the bot lane with this Ezreal Karma, or at least feel relatively safe. The Rumble has a pretty solid matchup into tanks as well, right? And then for Meslo in the mid lane, this Twisted Fate can look to push the lanes against an Aurora who has decent wave clear, but eventually I think the Twisted Fate's goal is to get the push and look to influence these side lanes. Do you think that that is more what they're looking for with like a lane kingdom here?
I would say definitely the priority in the bot lane is going to be able to really dictate kind of how this game is going to go. Anytime you're picking champions like the Twisted Fate to apply the pressure onto a champion like the Vayne that is so very short range, it's going to be very hard for Shogo if they do kind of fall behind to really kind of play this game out, right? So you have the pushing lane in the bottom side to really apply that early pressure, and then once Twisted Fate hits level 6, or even Wukong if he's pathing down that bottom side, he's going to be able to apply a lot of that pressure onto Shogo. So I'm kind of curious to see if like if they are able to kind of make those plays happen, because I think if this game is relatively even, I do really like Lotus's draft in terms of the front to back kind of composition. They've got the beefier tank in the front line. They've got the more DPS 80 carry But the initial start of the game could easily go to Meslo's family, which we've kind of seen that from Lotus. Lotus kind of tends to struggle the first like maybe 5 to 10 minutes of the game, and then once they really kind of figure things out and kick things into a gear, they don't really stop, right? So essentially, they gotta be able to kind of have a foothold in this game a little bit early, and then take their mechanical prowess in a lot of these team fights and really take it to the next step.
Yeah, they definitely do seem to have a good idea of how their compositions work and how they want to execute on that plan. We'll see if they can do exactly that here in game number 1 versus Meslo's family. We're going to take a little break here as we wait for the spectator delay, but we'll be back before too long with game number 1. We'll see you there. Welcome back, League of Legends fans, to Summoner's Rift. We've got game number 1 here of the NACL Open Qualifiers Round 4 winners bracket. It's Meslo's family versus Lotus. And Orion, this is an important game. If either of these teams, the winner of this game, will move on to round 5 of the winners bracket. If they win that game, they are guaranteed a spot in the qualifying tournament. The loser of this game, of course, goes down to the losers bracket, and I think we'll still have about 5 best of 3s to play. So big difference there in a winner or a loser. So, I mean, every game, of course, important in this tournament, but this one feels especially for these teams.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that these teams are relatively close in terms of their standings, or in terms of like their initial seeding.
Yeah.
So kind of curious to see exactly how this one ends up playing out. As we do see, this is kind of what we're talking about early on with the spotlight pressure. Like, there's not really too much they can really do to kind of answer the range that the Ezreal and the Karma actually has kind of down here on this bottom side. Big thing to note, though, is that you're going to see opposite pathing here for these both junglers. You're going to have Xin Xiao pathing up towards this Ornn with a Rumble, and then you're going to actually have the Wukong actually kind of pathing down. There is still the possibility of Xin Zhao kind of doing like a bit of a backwards clear, where instead of going up towards that top side of the camp, he could theoretically go down to his bottom side and maybe make a 3-camp play, but that usually doesn't happen as often as it used to, simply because of the changes to jungle and the timings of everything. But it does look like he's potentially looking for a play in the mid lane, actually.
Yeah, a lot of burst damage here with the Xin Zhao and the Aurora. They are going to go forward onto the TF. The gold card is going to buy him a moment. Can the knockup come in here from Schernfire? They're looking for the dive. The flash from TF keeps him alive. Repi also flashed to follow some mid laners with no flash, but no kill to be had.
Yeah, just barely able to survive there. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time there from Schernfire, unfortunately. So as Wukong is kind of constantly clearing out a lot of his camps, he is still able to kind of keep up the pressure a little bit that Schernfire was not quite able to have, but still able to kind of get that flash out of Twisted Fate in the mid lane. And for a champion like Twisted Fate that is immobile, that doesn't really have a great way of surviving those games, that can be a very good flash to have early on into this one.
Yeah, especially against something like the Aurora that has a little bit of gap close and, of course, a lot of that kind of burst damage that can come out. So we'll see if Schernfire wants to make a return trip into that mid lane. And, of course, Kuthro going to be finishing his first clear, heading towards the bot lane Scuttle Crab. We'll see what lane he might choose to influence early on. Actually is making his way towards the mid lane here as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, possibly looking for a play there, but unfortunately, with Aurora understanding that Wukong probably up on that top side of the map, especially with his jungler also being on that top side as well, just kind of playing towards that side, respecting the fact that Kulthro could look for that possible play. And it's going to be possibly a wrap around here from Schernfire. I think there could be possible communication from Gygar that the ward is in the river, so Schernfire actually doing a good job pathing around the ward here. He is unseen up in that top bush up there, and he is going to look for a play.
Going to be walking forward. Dashes on to Prank. Prank just flashes, but oh, it's the Bluetooth knockup again that we see, and now Geiger charges into his own wall. Prank has the shield, but that will not be enough. Coach Fire goes under tower and finishes that one off. I gotta say, Orion, I would never expect a Xin Zhao to gank me if I'm facing an Ornn. Prank did not see that one coming and is going to pay for it with his life.
Yeah, honestly, it's just really great pathing, like I was talking about from Schernfire. There, I don't know if there was the communication there or just the fact that he said, hey, he walked down the river. He's probably not going to actually have the ward kind of down that lane, and ends up actually working out really well for them. As we do see TPs from both top laners back from that top side. Wukong is kind of chilling behind him in these bushes, but I mean, really, there's probably no realistic play to happen here, so he's just going to end up walking back over to his Krug camp to really kind of start that one up. But like you were saying, I mean, obviously you don't usually gank for the top lane tank, but it is one of those things where we do see, actually, here, so here we go. So Schernfire, like I said, we're going to walk around here, going to do the Scuttle Crab, and he's going to recognize the fact that the ward is actually down that river, so he's going to take the time to walk around the edge here, not ever seen by any of the vision here. And even though Geigar's a little bit low on mana, he has just enough in the tank to really allow the CC to land here. A nice little knockup here initially by Schernfire, and then the follow through from Gygar, just barely able to get that one going, and we see Schernfire just barely able to dash on.
It's alive though.
Oh, actually,
Picture in picture did fall out, but it's another gank into the mid lane here for Schernfire, and he is able to pick up Twisted Fate, who did not have flash to get out of that engagement. So Schernfire definitely making the most of his early game.
Yeah, definitely a really nice replay visit there. Hopefully we'll be able to get a replay on that one at some point. But obviously we had the play there on the initial play. We saw, that's due to the fact they were able to get the flash in that mid lane, right? We saw that initial play happening as Psycho's looking for play bottom. Picture-in-picture does have TF ulting down there. He's going to look for that play. There's nothing really Shogo can do down here. Unfortunately, that is going to be resulting in his death.
Yeah. Has flash, has barrier, opts to use neither, and just takes the L. So kill over to Winking.
Yeah, definitely. Like, obviously, in that replay, we saw just for a second there, we saw the initial plays. But you see, here's going to be that replay, I believe, onto the bottom side here as Psycho's going to walk forward with his Mantra W. And really, the second it really lands, it's going to be really hard for him to actually end up playing. As you see another play in picture-in-picture as well.
Yeah.
We see Karma just barely able to survive.
No way! Oh, the barrier as well. Winking flashes forward, misses the Q, can't finish off Mixture, has to use both summoner spells to escape with his life. So a bit of an overplay, I would have to say. And that's going to be a summoner spell-less 80 carry for Meslo's family.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things where we're seeing so much action happening across the map all at one time that the second we go for a replay, it's going to end up popping up into another fight. So we got the picture-in-picture fights as well as the replay fights, trying to making sure we get every single thing as possible as well as we can. And obviously, like you said, Winking not quite able to pick up that kill there, using both of his summoner spells to try to really pick up that kill there. And unfortunately for him, not quite able to pick that up. It's going to feel really bad for him. As we're going to see, here's going to be this play happening here. The initial tether doesn't let through. Mantra Q, actually good damage here, but Winking, unfortunately for him, missing that Q. Having to use the barrier to survive the initial tower shot. Mixture trying to style on him a little bit with that initial early recall, but ends up nothing happening. So you see a picture-in-picture fight happening on the bot side.
2v2, yeah, summoner spells being burned either side. Shogo's going to get rooted up with the heal for Mixture. Will keep him alive in the auto. Will finish off Psycho. Now flashing forward once, another will get it. Winking able to trade one back, but Shogo takes 2 for 1.
Yeah, nice play there from Mixture, actually, on the very beginning of that play to block a lot of that initial damage coming through from the Karma. Obviously, both these champions being skill shot reliant in terms of a lot of their damage to come through, so being able to body block that one to come through, and Shogo, like you said, able to chase down the Ezreal on the back end there to secure the kills to come through. Obviously, like you said, Winking obviously able to pick up that initial kill. So we do see another picture-in-picture live kill happening from the Aurora on the side there. Unfortunately, I'm going to interrupt our replay there quite quickly. But yeah, we saw the initial play there. We saw Wukong being chased down by Schernfire and Reppy, and there wasn't really much they could do to answer that one. But another kill being picked up here by Lotus.
7 kills in 8.5 minutes. It has been action-packed here between these two teams in game number 1. We're second-guessing every opportunity for a replay because there is just action everywhere. Mixture and Psycho, the supports, joining in the mid lane here.
Oh, fight happening top lane.
Right into the top lane as well. Gygar might be in trouble. It does have the riddle, and he chooses to charge backwards instead of looking to flip the fight. Mixture now caught out by Kuthro. Nice bubble will keep him safe for the time being, but I don't think it's going to be enough. 3 people here, not quite able to give the kill to the Ezreal, but Kuthro will pick up his first.
Yeah, and obviously the replay here is that 2v2 we were talking about here. Shogo doing a nice job. Trying to keep up his lethal tempo, trying to just kind of kite away as best as he can, able to get that kill there with his true damage. And obviously, like we said, Winking able to get a nice QW here with the auto attack to really secure that kill. That happened what feels like an eternity ago. We just see a dive in the bot side.
Dive in the bot lane. Shogo's already dead. There is 4 members from Meslo's family. It's almost the whole family here in the bot side for Shogo, and they will pick up a kill.
Yeah, not quite able to have their top laner participate in the family affairs, but they didn't really need him in this situation. Obviously, there was that other side picture-in-picture. I believe there was a kill also picks up there onto either Shogo or Mixture there. As we just see, here's some of that replay. Some of that kill up there from that Wukong. This is that play where Reppy's able to kind of go over with the Aurora ultimate and just have the burst damage to come through to pick up that kill there. Does end up picking up that's play. Unfortunately for Twisted Fate, just doesn't quite have the ability to answer Aurora in that situation, just simply because she just doesn't have the damage that she does and the ability to roam over, and he had the lane cut off in that situation. So But yeah, chaotic game to say the least so far in this one. Still like relatively good CS numbers. This is that 1v1 we're talking about a little bit there. Prank living with just 1 HP. I wonder if Gygar just didn't realize how low he truly was in that situation to kind of look for that play, because he was 1 HP when he was diving away from him. Definitely could have possibly looked for that play, but unfortunately he is able to kind of survive that one.
Yeah, I mean, he is an Orin. The last thing he wants to do is give kills over to the Rumble, right? A kill on him probably doesn't make too much of a difference, as we'll get another look at this dive. I mean, yeah, Shogo, you're not allowed to play the game in that situation, unfortunately. He's going to get gold carded into all sorts of damage over the top, and yeah.
Yeah, I do believe we have officially caught up on everything, I hope, but there's a live picture-in-picture.
Yeah, play into the bot side. Fire is going to go on to Psycho. Nami Wave is going to get teleported over. They want to give it to the Vayne. He does roll forward and take it out. True Shot Barrage is going to get barriered from Shogo, just making sure no extra surprise damage coming out from that play, and it's going to be a Vayne with a couple extra kills here. Nice one from the side of Lotus.
Yeah, nice pick up there from the side of Lotus. Obviously able to make the roam play happen from Fire, able to kind of be over to it. They were able to kind of secure the kill, like you said, onto that Vayne. And that's for the champion. They really want to make sure that gets going. We've seen Vayne. We've seen all the highlights, videos of things happening with Vayne. Take over. But Cyclone coming through onto Colthrow.
Yeah, Coach Fire in the mid lane, River here. TP's coming down from both sides, but he's just going to keep going forward onto the Wukong. Wants to take the kill out. Heals coming out from both sides. Is Reppy actually going to go between worlds and try to get the dive here onto the Karma as well? It's going to be the red carpet laid out from the Rumble, but it's not really hitting so much of anyone. Prank will go down instead of doing anything in this fight. Reppy goes invisible for a moment. The two carriers will eventually take him out from the side of Meslo's. And now Geiger gets blast coned into the enemy wolf pit, looking for the chase down here onto Winking. He flashes forward, tries to get Mixture, won't be able to. Now the Twisted Fate looking for a hero play. Gold card will land, and he does pick up the kill on the backside. Geiger running for the hills. It is Shogo on the way over, but the chase down will not come through. This game, Orion, is something else.
Yeah, it's been very, very hectic, to say the least. Fire obviously trying to look for the initial play onto Colthrow. Wasn't quite able to pick up the initial kill there, but Reppy with the ultimate over the top to secure the kill. And honestly, Geigar's initial ultimate here was very, very good. We see the two-man knockup into the two-man E right there against the wall, actually causing so much disruption in this fight. And really, for me, the biggest issue is the fact that Shogo is not here throughout any of this product. So obviously, you see this is a full-on 5 versus 4 here, and unfortunately just not quite able to pick up the kill there. Geigar, unfortunately, does get blast cone there, and they were almost able to pick up this kill here onto Winking. Doesn't quite have the ability to kind of chase him down here, but we do see Twisted Fate's ultimate over the top as well. Pick up the kill there onto Mixture to kind of turn the tables there a little bit. But we do see, like I said, 16 kills in just only 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, there they go again.
Tidal Wave in the bot side. They're looking for another kill, and they're going to get it, actually, on both sides. Ezreal goes down. Shogo in the death chamber here, as well as the action just don't stop.
Yeah, the initial play, actually, we saw the fight up here. Actually, no, Reppy being targeted.
He's going to go invisible. Try to hop his way out of here in between worlds, but he's going to get knocked up. Gold card into knock-up is going to get him there, and yeah, there's some damage just there to finish him off. Okay, Fire maybe once more, looking for the chase down here onto TF and the Wukong, but Psycho in the back pocket here from Meslo's family is going to provide enough space for them to get out. They're not going to be able to turn it back around here, even with the gold card. So let's take a look at that one.
Yeah, I gotta see which. Okay, so it's gonna be the replay at the bottom side here. So this is the initial 2v2. We see the damage initially coming through. The bubble actually ends up landing onto Karma, and they're saying, okay, we can actually possibly progress. For the second Winking actually phase shifts forward, sorry, Arcane shifts forward. He's looking for that play. Shishoko just barely able to flash behind Winking there, but the WQ from the Ezreal there with the empowered damage from that Q landing was just enough to pick up that kill there onto Vayne. So almost really well played there from Shogo, but unfortunately actually ended up not even mattering in that play. As we do see, this is going to be the continuation of the replay is going to be onto Reppy there, but unfortunately it ends up, yeah, like I said, Reppy's going to ulti over, using the Protobelt to try to dash away as well. Unfortunately, the chase down to come through from Colthrow, and Fire actually, yeah, back into picture-in-picture. Mid-tower here, very likely to fall almost.
Yeah, a couple of members in the area from Meslo's, though. Shogo's got to be careful. has the final hour. He's going to get rooted up by the Mantra W. Twisted Fate using the ultimate here as well. He's going to be able to find him out. You're not invisible when TF can see you. Shogo does trade one onto Psycho, but is going to be going down for the 5th time this game.
Yeah, definitely playing very aggressively, to say the least. Trying to maybe posturing a little bit too far forward, trying to pick up that kill there, or not kill, but the structure in that mid lane. Obviously, it is very, very low. And anytime you're able to open up a mid lane structure, it allows you to have so much easier access. But here's some of that replay, like we were saying. Bubble does end up landing, but Twisted Fate's ultimate is still able to come through. Tidal Wave just barely missing that Twisted Fate there. I think that honestly could have been a pretty major difference in that play if they were able to possibly secure that knock-up there. It would have been actually would have allowed Vayne to even possibly be able to survive that situation, but it ends up being a 1-for-1 anyways. But obviously Dragon now being started up here in this live picture-in-picture here. It doesn't really look like Lotus is in a very good position to try to challenge this current objective. So right now, really the rest of the members are going to try to push out these waves and try to see how much gold they can get on the map.
Yeah, definitely tough for them to contest there. Fire wanted to get a reset here, it looks like. And Shogo was picking up a wave, so does have a CS advantage here on the Vayne, so that's going to be feeling pretty good, looking to scale up as much as possible, obviously, on that Vayne, so feeling pretty good about that one. But yeah, Dragon number 2 actually going over to Meslo's family, as we do see Fire taking the Hex Portal across the map. He's going to get spotted out by the Twisted Fate, not going to find much more there.
Yeah, is able to possibly test his Gromp here, but it is also looking for a bottom play here. He is trying to possibly stack up his Q here on this Gromp. It is going to help him get the nice shot.
This wave is pretty small, but they're just going to go forward. That's a lot of damage coming out the Tidal Wave as well. They do take out Winking. It's going to be the kill on Shogo, and he's going to pick up the second as well. TP in from Prank is not going to get here in time to save his bot lane, and now Geiger's TP'd into the fray as well, and this is a Rumble that is in trouble. He's going to try and trade back here onto Shogo, but ultimately the damage will not be enough. Shogo picks up a 3rd kill on the play, and this is a Vayne now that's looking off to the races.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about with it. Since kind of over the wrapping around here, he's able to stack up his Q on that initial Gromp, and the second he goes in, he's able to layer all that damage with the Titanic as well over the top. And then we see both top laners actually answering each other's TPs, and they're like, hey, we can just kill this guy too. Fire doing a nice job landing that initial knock up there, basically allowing Geigar to just ulti over the top of him. And really, like you said, 3 kills very quickly over to Shogo, as well as picking up that bottom tier 1 tower. As you see live picture-in-picture, Reppy using his ultimate there to possibly try to deter any further engagement there as Shogo was kind of wrapping around. But we can even just look at the items here. This Vayne is almost 3 items at 18 minutes.
Yeah, I have to imagine it'll be the Infinity Edge 3rd here for Shogo. Has a little bit of a bounty on his head now as well, and that's not even counting the fact that he's got an Ornn that's going to give him, one of those war-forged items or whatever they're called before too long. So Shogo's feeling pretty good, the remastered item. But we do see an engage coming through here. Could be Meslo in a little bit of trouble here as the Twisted Fate coming forward. Fire is going to hit the ultimate and is going to actually go down himself. That fight just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, but it is going to be Meslo's family looking to drop down the Rift Herald and potentially break down this mid lane tower. Reppy on the flank.
Are in the
Might have
area,
something to do about it. Knock up from Geiger. Yeah, they're looking to press forward. Shogo into the final hour. Reppy goes invisible here as well. Both the carries looking to be deceptive as they do land a 2-man knock-up here from Geiger. Code throws into the back line. He doesn't have the ultimate, though, and he just gets absolutely blown up. Shogo's going crazy. Shogo's got a double kill, and he ain't done. He flashes forward. He gets another onto Psycho with the help of his mid laner, who picks up a double kill as well there for Reppy, and now it's Winking against the world. Winking's health bar is blinking. Winking's health bar will fall, and it's an ace for Lotus as they just turn that fight on its head.
Yeah, I think mostly for Lotus is they used all of their tools on that initial kill to try to pick up that initial play onto Fire. Here's some of the initial TP once again. Gold card coming through. They are able to pick up this kill here because they have Rumble coming over. They have the Equalizer over the top here to really secure the kill happening. But you can see here, it's like, okay, they use Wukong ult, they use Rumble ultimate, they use basically every tool they possibly have in the kit. So even though this is a 5 versus 4, Lotus still pretty much has everything up available. We have Aurora's ultimate is about 20 seconds away at this point in the fight. So Geigar's like, okay, I'm just going to ulti over the top. He's going to let a nice 2-man knock up here onto the Twisted Fate and the Rumble that's going to basically knock him down here for for Shogo, really kind of allowed him to kind of take over this fight. And honestly, if the Cyclone was available there for Colthrope, it would have been very nice, but unfortunately he used it. But a great condemn there as well from Shogo to pin him against the wall, and really the chase down from the rest of the members of Lotus here was fantastic to pick up the remaining kills.
Yeah, great turn, great realization from them. Like, okay, yeah, we're down a man, like you said, but they don't have ultimates, and we still do. You've got an Ornn to just hit the go button, and speaking of the Ornn, Guygar's gonna hit the BM key just a little bit there for farm some aura in the bot lane, and then get back to farming.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate thing with Twisted Fate as your mid laner, is the fact that you don't necessarily have a strong, he's not a champion that's gonna have a ton of. Oh wow, that was a fantastic Crucible coming through from Mixture. To make sure he didn't say CC'd for a very long time. But like I was saying, when you have a champion like Twisted Fate, he is more or less just a pick champion. At some points, he even becomes just a gold card champion as often as he possibly can. So we're looking to see multiple members here gather around the mid lane. Dragon obviously is spawning up in 5 seconds, and Lotus is in a fantastic position here. They have all 5 members here in the area. They're going to go ahead and start this one up, but obviously Meslo's family is kind of in the area to possibly contest here. They're walking face first into Reppy, though.
He gets a chunk of damage on Kuther, who's now into the pit, not going to be able to get the seal, but now knocks up multiple members. It's going to be the ultimate over the top from the Rumble, but it's really not sticking any sort of damage here. The Twisted Fate's just going to ult out as they realize the fight is already over. Prank is left out to dry, and Shogu gets another 2 for himself.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious with the death of Colthrow here. They may possibly want to posture for a Baron over here, because they do have a champion like the Vayne that can definitely demolish that type of structure. They definitely are contemplating kind of going over in that area. Multiple members are kind of walking over to that side. Baron obviously is currently being started up. Colthrow is about 5 seconds away from spawning. I don't think he'll be able to make it, because he's going to flash into the pit here very, very aggressively. And even if he picked up the dragon there, I think this exact situation would have remained the same. 2 kills going over to Lotus, because they just weren't really in great positions. And Colthrow, unfortunately, it does look like he has spawned in. He is kind of walking back over to the Baron. I don't think he'll be able to make it in time, though.
Yeah, Reppy TPs, and he kind of is able to just push them off the objective with that pressure. Meslo down here as the Twisted Fate is going to opt not to use the teleport and look for any sort of hero play with the team, so they do give away that Baron. It's a 22-minute Baroned up Lotus here, who are looking very strong. I mean, it's a 7,000 gold lead now for themselves. They've amassed 21 kills in 23 minutes, 12 of which are on Shogo.
Oh, this guy's
and, hello? Goodbye.
Yeah, Winking unfortunately just staying a little bit too far forward with no mana, and the chase down from Vayne's passive, as well as the ability with the speed dust from Nami. Just a little bit too much here, as the rest of the members are going to get chased down here on the top side.
They're just going to make plays all over the map. They don't even care. They do have the Nami on the way here as well. The Tidal Wave is going to go over the wall to potentially look for the pick-off onto Twisted Fate. That's the Trouble Bubble as well going to land. Fire still pressing forward. They don't quite have the damage to go for the dive. Reppy did take a bit of damage, but oh, here comes Shogo. Here comes the Vayne, and here comes another double kill for the Lotus 80 carry.
Yeah, unfortunately, just able to have tremendous chase down. Colthrow also looking, but I don't think he can do much here either.
There's just so much damage. The ants go marching one by one, and Lotus just knocks them down one at a time. They have full control of this game now, if they didn't already, and they are going to be taking down some structures, getting some of that standing gold. They still have got Guygar in the bot lane, who's taken a turret for himself. And I don't know if they'll be able to get too much more on this push, but I don't think they really need to.
Yeah, sometimes, honestly, it feels like I'm watching a bit of deja vu, from the last, 3 games or so that I've watched of Lotus, or 4, I should say. It's pretty much been the exact same thing every single time. They kind of start off a little bit slow here and there, a couple of things go wrong, but then once they get ahead, they just steamroll it on through.
Oh, speaking of steamrolling, that is an Ezreal who has no more life. Flash, Barrier, and Arcane Shift used, but they've got the chase down and the gap closed to make it happen anyways. Maybe a desperation fight going to be coming out here from Meslo's family, as they do get the Cyclone in, but it doesn't land onto Shogu. It's just onto Reppy, who just turns it back around with the help of Shogo. Prank now running for the hills through the bot side. He does have a Twisted Fate over the wall to try and provide some space for him. Mixture might be a fried fish this time. He will indeed be, but the chase down now from the rest of the team is going to come through. They don't even care about inhibitors. They don't even care about ending the game. They want to pick up all of the family. They'll get all 5. And now Shogo stands alone in the base. They're going to look actually to end the game right here, I think, Orion.
Yeah, they're going to TP in with Geiger, obviously coming from base. It is just Wing King for another 15 seconds, and he also may end up following here to the damage from Geiger. Yep, gonna pick up the kill there. And that is going to be the first game over. Total of 44 kills. Well, maybe even more than that, as Kulfaro is trying to add to the death total here, possibly, as the Nexus is going to get picked up here by Lotus in this one. Like I said, 44 kills in 25 minutes. The definition of chaotic, absolutely here for this one in game number 1.
Yeah, that was just an absolute bloodbath from start to finish, honestly, Orion. I mean, we couldn't even watch a replay for most of the early and mid game. So as soon as the fight started, they just didn't stop. They just kept going all game. And originally through the early stages, I feel like it was Meslo's family kind of dictating the pace, looking for those engagements with the Twisted Fate and making plays with him and the Wukong. But once Lotus found a fight or two and some kills onto Shogo, it was just devastation from then on.
Yeah, it really kind of got to the point where, like, I think it was that one team fight mid lane when they used a lot of their resources onto Surenfire to pick up that kill. I think they really just needed to kind of take their win and kind of back off, because even though there was some lower health bar members, once they got those 5 kills down there, and then also the 3 kills in the bot lane onto Shogo on that initial dive there from Surenfire, I think was fantastic to get Shogo really far ahead in this game. I think at that point, like I said, it was like 18 minutes in the vein. It was like one component away from having an IE and 3 items total. So this guy was just an absolute monster in a lot of these team fights, and really there just wasn't really so much that Meslo's family could really do once they fell behind. Like, they didn't necessarily have a ton of damage really in their kits. So in order to really deal with a champion like Vayne, you either have to make sure you permanently CC her, or you have to be able to try to, when she dashes forward aggressively, really try to burst her out and not make sure she plays the game. But when she's that fed and she has that many surrounding members to really make sure she's not able to do anything, it's going to be very, very hard to deal with a champion like that.
Yeah, not a lot of dive tools, and a lot of the champions that game for Meslos are champions that function better when they're ahead, right? The Wukong loves to engage onto weaker targets. I mean, everyone does, but the Wukong especially likes to be ahead of the curve and have that base damage numbers be really, really high. Same thing with the Twisted Fate. Like you said, if he's behind, he's really just a gold card bot, and it's pretty hard to hit a gold card onto a Vayne when she's got 3 items, a Nami and a Mikhail's Crucible to boot, right? Even if you land it, she's just going to get cleansed and keep doing her thing. So definitely a tough one for Meslos once they started to fall behind the pace of the game. And for Lotus, I mean, they realized how strong they were. They just kept the pedal to the metal, honestly, and it just never stopped. They pushed all the way to the base and ended up taking a victory there in game number 1. The job's not done yet, though, Orion. They've got one more game to win here today to make their way into the 5th round of this upper bracket, and that coveted 1 of 4 spots into the qualifying tournament. So we're going to take a short break, but I think the teams are almost ready for draft for game number 2. So we'll see you in a couple minutes with that one coming your way. It is a quick turnaround between game 1 and game 2 here for Lotus and Meslo's family. We are straight into the pick and bans for game number 2. Orion, non-stop action in game number 1. We'll see if game number 2 is going to be similar, or if maybe either of these teams want to slow it down a little bit and see what they can do in maybe a slower paced game.
Yeah, it does look like the bans are going to be very similar from game 1 to game number 2. Obviously, currently hovering a potential Malzahar ban. But I would say that's not a typical band, I would imagine, coming through. It could be like a pocket pick possibly coming through for their mid laner, but instead it is going to be the exact same Udyr band to come through in this game. Gonna go with that Seraphine option. Obviously, one of the very, very powerful bot lane supports currently in our current meta. It does have that flexibility to play both AD carry and mid lane, theoretically, so it does have a lot of that room to spare. Obviously, a very powerful duo with the Ashe as well. That is a very strong champion with that innate slow from the passive. So obviously, very powerful bot lane possibility here from Mythos family.
Yeah, definitely have seen a lot of these ranged enchanters in the meta recently. On the other side, Lotus locking in the Mel. That's a champion with some flexibility as well, Orion.
Yes, and a very powerful pick specifically into the Seraphine because you can block the Encore back to her and through her entire team to land a very powerful charm. It's a very common pick specifically into the Seraphine. Also, other champions that have very similar abilities as to her, and typically, like I was saying, the very common pairing is the Ashe. And if you have a champion like Mel that can block the Enchanted Crystal Arrow back to her, all of a sudden you take that away from her. So curious to see if they end up keeping that same line of thought, let's say, even though the Mel is in play. But Schernfire back on the Nocturne. We saw him have quite a bit of success in that game number 2 on that pick. Continuing, or from last series, looking to see if he can kind of continue that momentum here in that game number 2 for the series as well.
Yeah, definitely a strong pick. Also has a spell shield himself. I'm curious where this Mel is going to go. Like, Shogo has played some Mel this split with a pretty good success rate. They could do something weird and kind of toss it into the support position as well. I don't see Reppy having any games on it this split, at least on his main account, but of course it is traditionally a mid laner, so lots of options there. Sivir on the other side to pair with that Seraphine, so they're not going for the Ashe, they want more scaling, I guess, with this Sivir pick.
Ooh, and the Shyvana to come through as well. Obviously, it is the Change Shyvana for those that don't necessarily know. She is completely reworked. All of her abilities are very different. She has very recently gotten some changes and some patches where they want her to kind of go back to that AP Bruiser type of style that she was or before her rework. I think when she originally got reworked, they're like, okay, let's make her to an AD champ. And then they realized that wasn't very good. So they said, okay, let's make her back to an AP champ. And they still can't make up their mind when it comes to this champion, unfortunately. But it is going to be the Senna picked up here. Obviously, very similar with the Mel. It does have the ability to kind of go down into that bottom side as the bot lane option with the Mel. Or they could end up picking up a support option a little bit later in the draft for Mixture kind of to come through. Obviously, they ended up changing a little bit here. They chose the Sivir option a little bit. It kind of goes through with what I was saying with the Seraphine. If the Mel reflects the Encore back through the Sivir, she can just spell shield that and not have as much problems. So not wanting to have the least mobile AD carry of the options, but obviously wanted to have a little bit more speed to deal with that Nocturne here. So gonna end up seeing the bans obviously come through for both these teams. We've got LeBlanc being banned away by Lotus. We saw in that game number 2, obviously the pairing that was picked up was that Akali, which is currently banned away, so they may just end up sending that Mel into that mid lane here, like you were saying. Not a ton of games available, at least access to us in terms of what they have to play, but usually when I see a lot of these players, I tend to think that they can pretty much play whatever they want to play, considering how good they are at the game. It's a little bit different when we're casting like Diamond and Emerald players, where they have a little bit smaller pools. So I would imagine that both Shogo and Reppy could easily play this champion to a somewhat decent level to come through. Otherwise, they probably just wouldn't pick it.
Yep. And they are issuing some bans towards the mid lane pool too, so maybe trying to shore up some of those counters if they do end up flexing it into the mid lane there. On the other side, it's the Nico and the Annie, and that's probably a top lane Anivia. There's so much that can still happen with this Lotus comp.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, a lot of flexibility here. We've seen Anivia top, we've seen Anivia mid. Theoretically, it's a champion that could also go into the bottom lane as well if they
Mm.
really, really wanted to. Obviously, we've seen it primarily in a solo lane, so we're gonna have to wait on this last pick here from Lotus to really kind of decide exactly what's gonna end up happening here with this pick. We saw the Malzahar hover
Ooh.
as a potential ban away in the very first draft, so maybe they were possibly hinting, saying, "Hey, you should pick this Malzahar, or we're gonna possibly ban it away." So they've taken the advice, saying, "Hey, okay, we will pick Malzahar in this one."
Yeah.
Typically, not a very common champion that as we've seen in higher levels of play, at least. But obviously, with the Malzahar being locked in, it pretty much does mean Seraphine will be going into that support position. Just waiting on that last little pick here for, obviously, for Prank on the top side here. Possibly looking at what we're looking at here. Possibly a hover of the Gnar. Okay, Gnar obviously being locked in. The one thing with Gnar that I've always seen, it is very weak early on in laning phase. So if you pick a champion that's able to kind of stick on top of him, it can be very, very punishing in this top side. So this is a situation where they may actually send Anivia to mid lane and might maybe pick a little bit more of an aggressive topside pick. You obviously have champions like Camille, you've got Irelia, you've got Jace, champions that are very, very sticky. That can be very, very hard for Gnar to really deal with these champions, or they could just go the very standard tank side picks, but instead it's actually going to be the GP.
Okay. Okay. I feel like they just wanted a little bit more AD damage, I guess, to go
Yeah.
with this composition. Something that can fare pretty well with the Gnar, because is like effectively ranged a lot of the time in
Mhm.
some of those trading patterns that he can pull off. I feel like that means it has to be the Gangplank top. I'm expecting then Anivia support to go with the Senna AD carry, and then Mel being piloted by Repi in the mid lane. But I guess there's still some shaking up that can do on that side. The other side, pretty straightforward. We know where everything's going on the side for Meslo's family, and let's see how it shakes out for Lotus. Okay, yeah, so it is Anivia support.
Yeah, that is obviously that is current. It could very easily change. They do have a little bit of time during the draft to move the pick order around as they needed. They obviously do have to lock it in at some point before they're not allowed to trade anymore. But obviously, this is kind of what we've got so far. I do kind of like the composition from Lotus. It is very much AoE, like heavy, like kind of damage. You have the Nocturne ultimate ulting in with GP on top as well, even
Yeah.
possibly the Senna as well to really kind of layer it on. And they don't necessarily have the greatest way of kind of like dealing with that much damage kind of outright on top of them. They don't really have that tanky option to really kind of absorb the initial damage. The tankiest member is probably going to be obviously Mega Gnar or that Shyvana to come through. Obviously, there's two Sivers on our screen currently, but that's not true. It is Shyvana to come through. But it is one of those things where I think I do kind of like that engage, but at the same time, though, if that Nocturne does go in too deep, he is the only one to follow, right? No one else is actually going to be engaging with him, so he may actually have to play these fights a little bit slower than he
Right.
would probably typically like. Because last game where we saw the Nocturne, we had the Akali, we had the Galio, we had all these other champions to kind of layer on top with him. He is the only champion that can actually go deep in this game.
Yeah, and he's against the Malzahar. So if he does go in and overcommit, they just click R on his face with the Malzahar, and the burst damage from Meslo should be enough to kind of cut through that health bar pretty effectively. Like, yeah, there's the Dawning Shadow for some shielding. You mentioned the Cannon Barrage for some extra damage. If they're ahead, then layering of those ultimates is enough to probably trade a kill on a squishier member of Meslo's, but Surenfire definitely will have a little bit of a trickier time without the dive buddies beside him here in this one. So Lotus have switched their comp. Okay, we've got Anivia mid, Mel 80 carry for Shogo, or AP carry, I guess, and the Senna will actually be the support. So interesting changes there, Ryan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I was personally expecting. I think Mel operates the best with the gold and can deal with the bot lane of the Seraphine pretty easily. Obviously, she's going to have a bit of a harder time dealing with Sivir's push in the lane in particular, but she obviously has the ability to reflect any of Seraphine's damage back at her.
Yeah.
Well, as long as the W's on cooldown. It is a gigantic cooldown, though, so it's very, very hard to consistently be able to do that, at least early on into the game. And then the Anivia mid into the Malzahar. Malzahar's range is very, very limited. He obviously is pretty much using only his Malefic Visions to really try to push in the wave on his E. But really, outside of that, he's going to have a hard time actually walking up to the Anivia once she hits level 6 to really deal with that ultimate actually coming through. So I do kind of like the way they set it up. This is what I probably would prefer out of all the options. But obviously, theoretically, these champions could kind of go anywhere. That's kind of the fun thing about flexibilities and drafts, because you always have the ability to, move things around as you see fit, whatever works best for your team, and kind of have things situated to the fact that, you're actually able to really make these plays happen.
Yeah, like you say, the Mel wants the extra income for the gold, so make sure that she's doing burst things like Mel wants to do. The Senna is totally fine to sit back, get some extra stacks, farm up that way, and Mixture will eventually be a very effective enchanter as well as deal some pretty good damage. So we'll have to see how that all does pan out. We're going to take a short little break here as the teams load onto the Rift, but we'll be right back. Team Lotus, one game away from punching their ticket to the next round here in the winners bracket. Welcome back, everybody, here for Game 2 of Lotus versus Meslo's family. Orion, Lotus are one game away from making their way into round 5 of the winners bracket. They have gone three clean matches to this point and have still not surrendered a loss, winning game 1 against Meslo's in pretty convincing fashion. And so now one game of league away from that round 5 matchup next weekend. They've got an interesting comp here for game number 2, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, definitely different for sure. Obviously, with the addition of Mel as a champion into League of Legends, you definitely have this ability to kind of have more AP threats down on the bottom side. You have champions like Brand, you have champions like other champions like that kind of have that long range, like even like the Seraphine as well. If they were to go AP, the AP mage instead of the support in this one. So, a little bit of variance here, obviously, than the atypical one would say, but, I mean, like you see, very heavy trading down here on the bottom side. Both heals used by the supports here in this one. But really, not a whole lot of real threats is going to happen until about level 2 or so, when both these, they have the ability to kind of have their CC options down here. But overall, we do see both junglers starting on the top side of the map here. Kind of pathing down is what it looks like for the most part. We do see, basically having relatively the same timing. Probably recognizing the volatility of this bot lane is going to be mostly where it's at. And really, honestly, I do really like the scaling coming through from Lotus's composition. Obviously, GP with DFT can provide a lot of that early game power, or sorry, late game power, I should say, to be able to provide a lot of the damage over the top. But overall, I think for Lotus, they'll be fairly content with playing this game out nice and slow.
Yeah, I think the early game will be a little bit more measured than what we saw last game, although as I say that, Meslo in the mid lane on the Malzahar barely escaping with his life there as Reppy's putting down the pain here early on in this matchup. But looking at the junglers around, I mean, both of these champs really are going to get turned online when they hit level 6. Before then, I mean, the Shyvana can maybe gank a little bit if she gets a wraparound angle, same with the Nocturne, but it's not something you're typically going to expect from them. So both of them heavy clearing towards this bot side. We'll see if they are going to maybe get a contestation for the bot side Scuttlecrab. I think with the pressure that Reppy has been able to put out in the mid lane, it should mean that Schernfire is able to grab this, but both teams looking to contest for the area. Heavy trading in the bot lane. Winking does use the ghost, and actually Schernfire just wins this 1v1. He doesn't even care. He's just going to auto throw down. Has to flash away. He's going to flash to follow, and he gets the first blood kill. Winking now is in not a very good spot. Has to flash the wall himself to get out of that situation. Psycho could be the next target. Reppy roaming from the mid lane is going to get silenced, and the flash does have to be burned again. So 3 flashes burned on the side of Meslo's, and it's first blood over to Schernfire.
Yeah, Schernfire just in the area a little bit quicker than the Shyvana was. If they would quite get in that area, obviously they started out the fight with the initial. I guess Shyvana was initially walking into that bush trying to look for that play, but unfortunately he wasn't quite able to kind of start out the way he wanted it to. And here's with that replay, yeah, like I was saying, Coach Fire, he has the HP advantage and able to land that initial tether from the fear. And once this happens with the additional AD from Nocturne, he can just chase her into oblivion. Even with the flash to come through, Schernfire able just to kind of follow it afterwards. And Winking in a very, very dangerous situation too, he also has to flash. And unfortunately for Shogo, wasn't quite able to get the deflection here from Psycho to really get it back to him. Psycho was able to flash that one away. That would have resulted in a kill there onto the enemy support, but ultimately able to survive that one as Mixture.
Back to live. Mixture burns the flash, but burns it too late. Winking will put a boomerang in the back of his head and take that kill for himself. The Siver's on the board.
Yeah, nice little answer back there from the side of Meslo's family. Obviously, rough start to this one, but able to kind of basically say, hey, we can kind of get back into this game just a little bit here, as we see Geigar trying to trade aggressively here onto Prank. He does have both the cannons able to get fired up, but here's that replay coming through. We do see pretty heavy trading coming through from Winking and Psycho. Winking obviously using both of his summoner spells in that very last play, but it is still a Sivir that has had the ability to kind of have a lot of things happening here. Shogo using the initial Reflect to actually block away Psycho's E instead of possibly waiting for the boomerang of the Q to come through. So you see flash away from Geigar. Nice, well done by there to get away from Mega Gnar. I think if the ultimate would have landed, I don't know if he had orange available or not, but if the ultimate would have landed into that wall without the orange, that definitely would have been a dead game plank there.
Yeah, Good predict on the flash there, just as Prank ticks over to level 6, is already in the mega form and looks for the all-in. But yeah, on the bot side, Mixture just like a little bit too greedy with his flash there. Shern fires into the mid lane here. He's going to get silenced, but he doesn't care because he can still right-click. Oh, gets ulted, but it's not under tower. Meslo maybe was hoping to hold him in place just in the range of that tower, but Shern fire able
still
to
chasing
walk away. Ooh, that's a lot of damage. The burn.
Oh,
Is it going to be enough? Yes, it is. Shern fire goes down for his efforts.
Yeah, honestly, I thought the initial ultimate from the Malzahar there was going to possibly get him underneath the tower, but it wasn't quite in the range there. But the initial damage from the ultimate with that little pool of whatever that leaves it behind, as well as the E coming through, was just enough. But GP ultimate over the top.
Gangplank ultimate coming down. Shogo's here ready to trade. That's going to be the root coming down into the stun from Reppy, and Shogo will pick up the kill. Despite their jungler being dead, Lotus realized they can make the play with the Gangplank ultimate, and that's ultimately the difference maker.
Yep, and that right there is the power of the Gangplank, right? Obviously, you have the late game scaling, but the ultimate over the top really kind of sets the tone for that fight. And when you're using your ultimate like that onto immobile carries, it's always so hard for them to really play the game if they don't have the flash, because the initial slow, as well as all the other abilities to land thereafter, they can't really just walk out of that GP ultimate as long as you put it right on top of their head. So well played there by Gygar to kind of even up the odds there and not really allow Meslo's family to kind of pick up that first dragon of the game.
Junglers have both ticked over to level 6 now. Cool throw, potentially looking for a play here on the top side as Gygar has been trading relatively aggressively. Prank also has the ultimate, but here comes Shernfire on the other side, trying to keep his Gangplank alive. Will not be able to do so successfully, but will at least get the trade kill the other way. Nocturne ultimate, turning that one around as Coolthrow actually didn't even have to use his own, wasn't quite there in time for the Dragon's Descent to make a difference in that fight. It'll be a 1-for-1 trade as the bot laners here continue to trade aggressively.
Yeah, Psycho only being level 4 does not quite have the Encore available up to him, but we are going to see potentially here, yeah, there should be the initial play here. We see Prank building up that Mega Gnar here, really trying to like posture aggressively, because he realizes that even though he's getting nice and low, the fact that Mega Gnar's about to take over means that he's actually able to play aggressively, and you're going to see the Mega Gnar actually end up popping here. He's going to ult him into the wall, and the initial stun landing even after the orange. Almost really well played there from Gygar, able to very, very close to surviving the situation, but unfortunately for Coithrow, just did not quite have the vision necessary to try to save his teammate. He didn't really know how low he was or what he was able to kind of do for him, so unfortunately he does end up just being a 1-for-1 trade there. Well played there by Shernfire, able to pick up that kill there with the Nocturne ultimate.
Yeah, and you talked a lot in Draft, Ryan, about how the Nocturne's job here is a little bit difficult into this composition, right? Doesn't really have a dive buddy apart from maybe some spells that can be thrown over the top to help him out when he goes for those ultimates. But getting a lead here for Shernfire is going to make that just that much easier, right? If he has like 100-0 kill threat on Psycho or on Winking, it doesn't really matter if he dies as long as he takes someone out and does some damage in the meantime. So a couple of kills early on for Shernfire is definitely going to be feeling good for the Lotus jungler.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, like the more tanky you are or the more items you have in that toolkit, it can become a lot easier just to kind of become that suicide bot that we kind of saw in that first number game. Obviously, big CS lead being built up here down at the bottom. So we see Saber ultimate is being used.
Kuthro still yet to use the first ultimate of the game for him. Isn't going to be able to get involved here in this one as Shernfire spots him out, and they're able to just kind of force him out of there as they have the level advantage in the bot lane. And
oh, Gygar.
How did he get there? I don't know, but now he's dead.
Yeah, not exactly sure what ended up happening there, but it seems like maybe he was trying to get down there to look for that possible fruit in the river, but it wasn't quite able to really make sure he get down there. And then this lead for this Gnar on the top side by Prank is starting to get nice and big here. Oh, Nocturne ultimate.
Into the Dragon Pit, actually. I thought it was going to go into the mid lane, but it's actually onto the Shyvana, who might be in trouble now. Does he have to use the ultimate defensively, but more unfortunately, it just goes right into the waiting arms of Reppy. Thanks for the leash, says Shernfire, and Lotus pick up the first dragon.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Coithrow was actually doing in that area, because he was essentially by himself. Trying to make that play happen. Bot laner was basing out, mid laner was being pushed in, so trying to be a little bit sneaky there, trying to pick up that play, but Nocturne's ultimate able to kind of go in there. As we do see, this is going to be that replay. So Gygar trying to get over that plant, but really it's just a nice read by Prank saying, hey, I can actually just make this play here. And unfortunately for Gygar, missing that barrel does just mean his death. He does not have flash in the situation. He is not able to really escape it. And really, even if he had it, he probably not very wise. But yeah, here's Koithro. He walks into the river. He does have that, he was on vision when he walked over it, so they know for sure that he's doing this and saying, hey, like, you're basically 1v4 in this situation. So definitely some miscommunication there from the side of Meslo's family, not being, very connected as a family usually is for the most part, unfortunately, but definitely trying to, make his own play, broaden out his horizons a little bit here.
Kuthro just thought like, hey, I'm a dragon, I belong in the dragon pit, but unfortunately
yeah, wrong
not.
family, unfortunately.
Yeah. Gotta play with Meslo's family, not the dragon family, at least in this game. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate. He will go down for the second time. It is going to be an early dragon and Psycho. Oh no, you hate to see it. It's going to be the ultimate from Shogo that will ultimately spell his demise. And Lotus, I mean, they're just kind of sticking it to them now in this game. The early game advantage that they've gotten in this bot lane has started to become a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, this Mel champion can be a very oppressive thing when it starts to kind of get ahead and you start falling behind, because obviously the way you aggressive go after this champion with a champion like Seraphine is you kind of have to use your spells, right, to get after her. And Mel wants you to use your spells. Like we kind of saw in that play there. She used the initial E, which was reflected right back to her, and then all the other CC was able to land, and there's just, obviously, there was the fail flash that ended up coming through.
Fire has Kuthro completely downloaded Orion. He is just going to look for the follow-up here. Again, the Dragon's Descent has to be used defensively. Kuthro not able to make the most of his most powerful spell here on the Shyvana pick. And Surenfire still has ulti. They're going to go for this. It's going to be a quick, easy dive here into the bot side. Actually, it is the flash coming out from Winking, but Mixture's looking to follow the Gangplank ultimate to slow them up, and Mixture's just going to shoot them right in the face. It's another 2 for 0, and Lotus are taking over game number 2.
Yeah, just to keep in mind there, that is a Senna support in this game. That's
sure
not
is.
The AD carry actively flashing underneath the tower to pick up those kills there. Patient with that replay to come through. We do see, obviously, this is going to be that first initial play here onto Psycho. That initial E is going to get reflected by the Mel, and there's that unfortunate flash there. Nice little ultimate there at the back end there to just enough stacks of Mel's passive to really secure that kill here. And like you were saying, we see the anticipation of the crab to come through by the Shyvana, trying to say, hey, we can actually really pressure this guy off of it. We saw multiple pings there on the mini-map to really try to pick up that play, so we're going to see Koithro. He's going to pick up this Gromp here, then he's going to walk kind of down towards this crab. We see multiple members after he kills that ward. They know for sure where this guy is and the possibility of it happening. So Reppy able to kind of have that first move over to kind of posture this play, able to get the Dragon's Descent to kind of come through. Unfortunately for Psycho there on the back end of that play, they tried to get the Encore to land, but unfortunately for him was flashed away from by Shogo. And then even after the crab is done, they're going to use Surenfire, so use the ultimate over the top. Flash away was almost good enough, but there's that GP ultimate as well. And like I said, Mixture able to flash through that tier 1 tower to pick up the rest of the remaining kills. And all of a sudden, Lotus's gold lead is getting higher and higher.
Yeah, the team synergy from Lotus here on full display. Even just like Shogo flashing away from that ultimate. Like if comms aren't super clear and they're not saying like, hey, we are killing Shyvana here, there could be a world where Shogo thinks he's the one baiting for Surenfire, right? And maybe he, instead of flashing away from that Encore, says, okay, yeah, I'm baiting. You hit me with your ultimate, try to commit on me, and we're going to turn it around. But he knows what the game plan is. The team all on the same page with that play, and even though they're kind of in separate fights and split up a little bit around the bot side of the map, they all play it according to plan and all know what the plan is. So yeah, 4K gold lead here now. Looks like they're going to be taking down the first turret of the game here in the bot side shortly. And actually, Surenfire wants to make some more plays in the mid lane, it looks like. They're comboing again with the Gangplank ult. And Meslo, with no backup from his family, is going to be in the death chamber again.
Yeah, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing for these champions like a Malzahar. The second he tries to flash away, he can just be followed by a champion like the Nocturne with the GP over the top, and there's just not really much that he can actually do about that situation. Psycho's being hunted.
He is going to toss out his abilities, but he is not the aggressor here by any means. Dawning Shadow will miss its mark with the sidestep from Psycho. Does escape with his life, but yeah, really not in a good spot here is Meslo's family.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have and I think the way that they get back into this game too is gonna be kind of difficult because they are champions that are definitely built around.
Okay, they're looking for it.
Actually, here we go.
Big fear coming through from Kuthro. They are going to get the egg out of Reppy. Coach Fire in the front lines is going to go down. Shogo and Mixture now trying to pepper the damage into the back line. Kuthro's going to flash away. Reppy does come out of the egg, but he could be in trouble here. Winking with a nice spell shield, but the stun's going to come through anyways. Mixture still alive. Shogo in the fight as well as Prank TPs in to finish one, if not both of them off. 2 for 2 in the fight here so far. Prank flashing forward, wants to make it a positive trade for his team. Has the Mega Gnar available under the tower. He's just going to walk on through, chuck a boulder at a Senna, and will end up finishing that one off. So Meslo's family find a fight. They find a dragon to stop the bleeding just a little bit.
Yeah, they really needed that play to be successful for sure, because it was gonna be hard to really kind of get it back into the play. This is gonna be that initial kill that we missed on that Malzahar play. We saw obviously trying to face check into Reppy, using that wall to get away here. And like I said a second ago, it's the second Malzahar flashes away, Nocturne still just kind of continues after him.
Yeah.
But you know, Meslo's family, like we were talking about just a second ago, they did a good job saying, hey, that even though like they basically had a stranglehold on us the entire game, we still have the ability to fight. This is where Psycho almost gets caught out here, able to just barely have good enough movements, just barely sidestep a lot of key ultimates there, able to survive that one as they're going to try to chase into the river here. This is where Shyvana lands a not full-time 4-man fear there, good AoE damage, but obviously Anivia having the egg, able to kind of barely get back into it. And really, the kiting here by Psycho and Mixture was just barely enough to pick up the kill here on the back end onto the Malzahar as well. And really, the big difference here is the fact that Frank ended up TPing into the back play, whereas the GP did not, and was able to actually pick up those kills. We're having a couple fights in live.
Yeah, getting caught, having to use the Dragon's Descent defensively here as well. Lotus really just exerting their pressure, trying to get that top lane tower, which they will do successfully. But now, Meslo stepped up too far, Dawning Shadow over the top, will take him out. Mixture falls for his efforts, though. I believe a little bit of burn damage finishing off the Senna there, but it's a 1-for-1. And this top lane does belong to Lotus for the time being. They take out the tier 1. Shogo gets tagged by the slow, is going to return that one back, but now the ultimate is flashed away from him. He's got the ult himself, and he'll turn it back around on Psycho.
Ooh, yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about with this champion. It's basically impossible to play Seraphine into a Mel, because all of your damaging abilities are just gigantic projectiles that she just sends right back at your face. And even though she's able to get the initial projectile block from the Q. Oh, mid lane. Ooh. Just barely able to survive that one from the Anivia ultimate. But like I was saying, it's just impossible to play this champion into Mel, unfortunately. And even though they're able to land it, the Encore flashed away from, and the rest of the damage able to kind of come through. But, you know, Lotus still able to kind of pick up a sizable gold lead here. Even though we saw Meslo's family kind of able to pick up that successful fight in the river, it is still a solid 5,000 gold here for Lotus. Able to kind of take the Rift Herald here. Possibly looking to maybe even use that in the mid lane, but instead it's going to end up backing off, going back into his own jungle here. But, you know, for Lotus, it's really just about trying to posture aggressively for position. As long as they are in relatively good spots to kind of make things happen, they can pretty much kind of go wherever they want, because they will always have the ability to have a lot of members in the area, right? Like any fight that ever happens, as long as GP Ultimate's off of cooldown, they can just use that on top of somebody's head. They have Nocturne Ultimate, possibly looking for a play onto Anivia here, though.
No egg for Reppy is going to get silenced, but Nocturne's here, and Geiger read this play as well, so now they're actually on the offensive as Lotus goes forward. They will kill one. Prank is going to get a 3-man knock-up here with the ultimate, but he only gets one. Okay, he will get 2, but will fall to the tower, and now Mixture is here. Mop and bucket at the ready. It's the cleanup crew here to clean up the fight. They will do exactly that. The 4-man dive is turned around, and Lotus take a 4-for-2 kill trade.
Yeah, they tried to make that play onto Reppy there down on the bottom side of the map. They felt like they had the numbers advantage, which they really did. But this is actually going to be a replay we saw up in that top side. I don't think we actually saw this one in live in picture. We're going to see Psycho obviously getting kind of caught out here. Able to get kind of chased down. I do believe, you know, Reppy trying to make this play himself, but this is going to be a little bit aggressive here. Shyvana actually able to use the ultimate to kind of buy a little bit of space. And yeah, this is where we're going to see, obviously, Malzahar trying to pick up the kill here. Mixture able to kind of land a very nice route here. Does end up falling on the back end of this play to the burn damage of that E. Unfortunately, but, you know, really the rest of them are trying to back. And this is where we saw that one play from Shogo. We're going to see the E barely landing there. The Q bounce back to him, flashing away from the Encore, and able to land that Q to really result in that ultimate kind of over the top.
Yeah. Take a look
So
as well at the attempted dive in the bot lane as well.
yeah, definitely a very interesting game. Obviously, they tried to make a little bit of a crazy play happen down here on this bottom side of the map, which should be coming up relatively soon. Yep, here it is. Yep. So obviously the wave was very short, and Nivea being the champion is able to kind of dictate how these waves end up playing out. She's able to kind of chunk it out before they even get here. And then, like you said, Gygar and Fire able to kind of be here in the area. Nice 3-barrel chain there from Gygar to pick up the initial kill from Malzahar. Prank almost able to actually turn this one around, but the ultimate actually only ends up stunning 2 of them. Didn't quite stun Gygar into the wall there. And then once this play happens right here, there's just no escaping happening here from the side of Meslo's family, able just to kind of run them down with the Senna and able to kind of pick up the remaining kills here while Mel was just pushing the mid lane the entire time. But Dragon is alive. They are posturing.
Geiger is the target. Dawning Shadow plus the orange keeps him alive, but now it's Surefire's time to go into the backside. Kuthra has to use the ultimate defensively. Stun over the back, Pranks into the backside. He does get a stun onto 2, but he's just going to get a turn back around onto himself. 2 are dead on the side of Meslo's family. Only 1 in the chamber, but it is Shogo that went down. Still, both teams posturing aggressively, looking to potentially take out this dragon. The man advantage on the side of Lotus means that they have control of the river. They've got Sustain with the help of Mixtures healed, and Reppy found the Malzahar. Meslo will go down. Meanwhile, on the bot side, Geiger and Surefier turning it around onto Psycho as well. I don't even know if they care about Psycho, though. They just want to take this dragon. Geiger will look for the chase down, uses the oranges to walk through the stun. Eventually, this Seraphine will probably die, but Surefier will take the time to take out the dragon. And again, it's just another team fight that Lotus are just playing that little bit better.
Yeah, I think obviously a big part of this one was a bit of a wallet diff. I think there was obviously there's a slight possibility that Meslo's family could have actually ended up picking this one up. But I think the biggest difference there was the fact that the initial play, the encore ended up getting blocked, obviously by Shogo, into hitting that Seraphine. Face checking.
Yeah, he's TPing onto Winky and taking him out. It just feels like they have their number at every step of the way. Ping's going down onto the Baron now, but Reppy's not done. Finds another stun, another chunk of damage onto Kuthro. But they'll turn their attention back towards that Baron.
Yeah, obviously Kuthro not really going to have the greatest way of getting back into the area. You know, Shyvana's ultimate is she does have flash if she really wanted to get over the pit, but Reppy and Mixture are just kind of standing over this pit, not really allowing them to kind of get back over here. Shyvana ulting in.
Ooh. Is going to look to flip it. Surefier with the sure hands will take it back. It's Meslo's family looking for an ultimate, looking for an encore into the backside, but there's just nothing to follow that up. Psycho stands alone, and not for long. The Baron belongs to Lotus, and so does the fight.
Indeed. Obviously, like I was saying, it's going to be very hard for them to kind of get back into that pit there. But, you know, just trying to flip it best they can. Unfortunately, it's not ended up quite working out for them. But here's going to be the initial fight here down towards the dragon side. Obviously, we talked about the positioning here. Shyvana's going to ulti in. Try to pick up this kill here onto Gygar, I think, at some point, after the Nocturne ends up ulting. Oh, actually, no, ulting away, but there's the Encore being blocked back from their team. And here's Prank landing a pretty nice ultimate here, winking, flashing forward, just not quite having enough in the kit for even with all those bounces. And it actually only ends up resulting in one of those kills. I mean, maybe if it's a little bit closer gold-wise, just the possibility. But, you know, Reppy's going to do a nice job here of Malzahar stepping a little bit too far forward there. Nice use of the wall to make sure Malzahar gets pinned against that, with making sure that lead stun ends up landing. And then obviously we just kind of ended up seeing what happens with Psycho here. He does end up surviving the situation as we're seeing a potential fight happening in live.
Picture in picture. Surefier looks for the ultimate into the backside. They are going to take out Kuthro once again. Mixture is just standing forward and being like, hey, I'm a Senna, come get me. And then the second they even think about it, Surefier hits the go button and just makes the dive happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're this far ahead. I mean, Senna is definitely not that weak, obviously, in terms of a lot of these abilities. So well played to them as we see another ultimate fight happening.
Flashes the wall. Will remain safe on this side as, oh my goodness, Shogo just hit his buttons and Meslo's life no longer exists. They get the tower in the bot side. They're going to get at least 2 inhibitors here. Prank is recalling in desperation. No Narbar full, though. I don't know if they have any way to try to put up a fight here. 4v5 in the base. Shogo pushing forward, and they're just destroying them from a screen away. Kuthro now dives forward, trying to make something happen, but there's just too much damage on the side of Lotus. kind of out of nowhere here, Orion. They are just going to end this game. They're going to make sure they wipe them all, pad the stats as much as possible because Lotus have taken another 2-0.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I believe if the bracket is correct from what we're looking at, they're now one best of 3 away from possibly making their way into that promotion qualifying match. So obviously a really big deal for these guys. They're getting closer and closer to working towards that inevitable goal of working all the way up there. And I think this game in particular was definitely one of the more cleaner games, I would say, from the side of Lotus. They've had their moments, they've had their ups and downs, but definitely this one, I think they responded well to a lot of what Meslo's family was trying to accomplish in this game. I think they definitely dictated the pace well of this one once they got ahead. And really, honestly, on the back of Sternfire's Nocturne, we've seen that twice today already, as well as Shogo on the Mel in this one. Basically, really denied a lot of what that Seraphim was trying to accomplish in this one. And, you know, when you have a champion that is, you know, a champion like Seraphim that is very powerful with her abilities, if you're able to use it against her into her own team like that, it can really kind of cause a lot of havoc, unfortunately.
Good draft from Lotus. Finally, Shogo gets to flex the mage bot lane muscles a little bit there with the Senna to pair up with it. And yeah, it felt like Sternfire just had Kuthro's number, right? On a lot of those plays, he just knew where he would be, communicated that to the team, said, hey, I'm stronger as my Nocturne, and I'm ready to fight this, and make sure you're there. And the team was able to trust those calls, really follow up on it, and ultimately them being on the same page, trusting those decisions and trusting Sternfire's shot calling and read on the enemy jungler was what got them that initial lead. And then from there, I mean, they know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of seen that, right? Obviously, like the success that this team typically has is past that 15-minute marker or so where they start winning those fights, and once they get ahead, they just continue to just make more and more of these advancements into the rest of the fights, where obviously they kind of just take charge of a lot of those situations. And there's not really much that, I mean, there hasn't really been a whole lot of resistance yet from a lot of these teams, unfortunately. So. But like we said, they are advancing further and further up into the upper bracket, and you know, like we said, they win one more best of 3. All of a sudden, they're starting to really play against opponents that maybe feels a little bit closer to them.
Yep. They are undefeated so far through 4 rounds of the open qualifiers here this weekend. They will be back next weekend. We'll be streaming their games. Like Orion said, if they're able to win their first game next Saturday, they will have guaranteed their spot in the qualifying tournament. So very, very exciting. A lot to look forward to for next weekend. But I think that's going to pretty much do it for us here on the broadcast today. Fantastic job to Lotus. Congratulations to them on 4 clean victories so far on the weekend. Really looking solid moving forward in this one. Orion, any last words for our viewers before we shut this one down this Saturday night?
No, I mean, I think obviously, thanks to our production team, kind of helping us out. You know, I appreciate, everybody kind of helping us here and really making the stream good. You know, shout out to Lotus, obviously playing very solid League of Legends, obviously hoping to win one more best of 3 and kind of work their way up into that potential qualifying match.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to get to cast some high-level League of Legends, and Lotus have had some pretty good League on display here this weekend. Orion, it's a pleasure as always to be with you here today. On behalf of Lotus, the CCS, our entire incredible production team this weekend, thank you all for joining us for the NACL Open Qualifiers. We'll be back next Saturday starting at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. That's 1 o'clock Pacific for that one potentially final match for Lotus where they can punch their ticket to the qualifying tournament. We'll hope to see you then. We'll see you next weekend.